Salem to order. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Kaiser. Commissioner Anderson.
Likewise.
Commissioner Nanke.
Here.
Chair McCoy.
Here.
Commissioner Ossick.
Here.
Commissioner Hoy.
Here.
Commissioner Cook. Here. And Vice Chair Lewis.
Here.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vice Chair Lewis, do you have approval of any additions or deletions?
Yes, we have one addition to the agenda at 3.3A, which is a low-income housing tax credit for rental assistance.
So you have a motion for us?
I move that we add that to the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded to add item 3.38 to the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Okay, do we have any public comment? Nope. No public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to address the Housing Authority of the City of Salem? Okay, moving forward. Got a motion, Vice Chair Lewis?
Yes, I move acceptance of the consent calendar with the two items. The first is 3.1A, the October 22nd Housing Authority minutes, and the newly added 3.3A low-income housing tax credits for the rental assistance demonstration project.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Andy, you have anything you want to talk to us about before we vote?
Just, yes, sir. Really quickly, this is just another application to serve the RAD project,
RAD is?
Rental Assistance Demonstration Project,
Thank you.
which is a HUD.
Mr. Acronym here.
Yeah, I'm trying to get down to the roots. So we applied for tax credit. We fell a little short, a little short, and so we're going back now to get another allocation that will finish the project in the financing. So what these properties are five large public housing authority, public housing, and this is a property that properties that the housing authority has owned for 45 years. They're in disrepair, so we're trying to get them in a better light for our clients that live there, and we're working hard to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we got a motion before you to approve item 3.3A. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. And with that, I adjourn this meeting of the Housing Authority of the City of Salem.
Call this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency, City of Salem, for November 26 to order. Please call the roll.
Board Member Kaiser. Board Member Anderson.
Likewise.
Board Member Nanke. Board Member McCoy.
Here.
Board Member Ossick.
Here.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Cook. Here. Board Member Lewis.
Here.
And Chair Bennett.
Here. Okay, do we have any additions or deletions?
No, we don't.
Okay, the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of the minutes of the November 13th, the Urban Renewal Agency meeting. Under resolutions, we've got proposed amendments to the Riverfront-Downtown Urban Renewal Plan. It does several things. It adds 2 new urban renewal objectives in section 400, which bring it more in line with the strategic plan. It amends a description to include includes in future expansion of the Salem Convention Center. It adds a new URA project to address homelessness in support of the Salem Strategic Plan, adds new URA projects for public facilities, and adds new URA projects for food and beverage-related development. And under action items, we have an action item that would authorizes the use of $110,000 of currently unallocated McGilchrist Urban Renewal area funds to fund completion of the preliminary design of McGilchrist Street improvements. That is the consent calendar.
That is it. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Seeing no further business, the Urban Renewal Agency is adjourned. Call this meeting of the Salem City Council for Monday, November 26th to order. If you please call the roll.
Councilor Kaiser. Councilor Anderson. Councilor Nanki.
Here.
Councilor McCoy.
Here.
Councilor Osick.
Here.
Councilor Hoy.
Here.
Councilor Cook.
Here.
Councilor Lewis.
Here.
And Mayor Bennett.
Here. Okay. Deletions, additions.
I move approval of additions to the agenda.
Second by Hoy.
And those additions are, there's under 5A, there's an added supplemental memorandum, and item 6E was added, a report was added. Those are the 2 items.
Okay. Very good. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Council and city manager comments. Well, first I want to, I'll make one comment. I want to thank each of you for the very kind messages you sent my wife upon the death of her mother. I really do appreciate it. My wife did as well, so thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else? Hope you all had a good Thanksgiving.
Are we still digesting?
Okay.
Trip to Fenton.
Where'd you go? Anybody go anyplace good? I went to SIO, so I'm feeling pretty good about things right now. It's a good place to go. Okay, very good. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I'd like to recognize Casey Duncan. This is Casey's last meeting as Deputy City Manager. And I know in an environment that's often heated and emotional and involves lots of anxiety, his calm, professional approach, demeanor, his ability to answer almost any question that's asked has been a real comfort to me, and I'm going to miss him as Deputy City Manager, and I wanted to publicly tonight thank him for his service. So, thank you.
Well, Casey, that's a sentiment we all have. We really have enjoyed working with you as acting city manager, deputy city manager, head librarian. Gosh, I'm trying to think of all the jobs you've done over the years. It's really been remarkable time. Really good luck in your future endeavor. Really do appreciate it. Tree lighting? You want to mention the tree lighting? Okay. Okay. It's tree lighting time, in case no one had noticed. It is now into the holiday season. We'll be having the annual tree lighting on November 30th at Riverfront Park, beginning at 6 p.m. with a lot of festivities, a lot of family activities, hot chocolate, cookies, Tremendous support from various parts of the community, particularly from Ross IGA for the cookies each year and the hot chocolate. And then on December 2nd, Sunday, we have the grand menorah lighting down at the corner of Parkway, the Pringle Parkway and Commercial Street. Want to invite you to that. We'll have a gold coin drop and all kinds of activities going on with that. I hope you can join us for that as well. Okay. I have one proclamation. Major Dan Williams from the Salvation Army and the Croc Administrator and the County Coordinator for Salvation Army for Marion and Polk County. And my bell ringing partner. Let me get this squared away here. Let's copy the proclamation down. Whereas Giving Tuesday was established as a national day of giving on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving, and whereas Giving Tuesday is a celebration of philanthropy and volunteerism where people give whatever they are able to give, and whereas Giving Tuesday is a day where people work together to share commitments, rally for favorite causes, build a stronger community, and think about others. And whereas it is fitting and proper on Giving Tuesday and on every day to recognize the tremendous impact of philanthropy, volunteerism, and community service in the city of Salem, Oregon, and whereas Giving Tuesday is an opportunity to encourage people to serve others throughout this holiday season as well as other times of the year, now therefore I, Chuck Bennett, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim November 27th, 2018 is Giving Tuesday and encourage the community to join together and give back in any way that is personally meaningful, dated this 26th day of November 2018. And I've invited Major Dan Williams from the Salvation Army to come just visit with us briefly about a daily opportunity to give and ring the bell, hopefully.
Thank you so much. What an honor it is to come and to receive this proclamation on behalf of all the charities within our community on Giving Tuesday. But I'd also like to say, if you haven't heard this bell yet, it's out and ringing. In fact, right as soon as I leave here, I'm going to pick up some of the kettles. But there's an opportunity for each one of you. If you'd like to volunteer and bell ring, you can contact us, and we'd love to have you out there bell ringing for us. But a couple other opportunities that are coming up this year is also our packing day of packing food. We have 1,600 families that we're going to be serving here in Marion County and here in Salem especially. And so we would love to have you come out and help us pack on December 15th. And then we're going to distribute these things on the 18th, 19th, and 20th. And if you'd like to be a part of that, go to salem.croccenter.org or contact Angela Ashley at our office. But thank you so much, Mayor, for recognizing us in this time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have any presentations, so we'll move on to public comment. I'm going to remind everyone, we have a large group here tonight. Looks like a fairly large group of people to testify. Remember, everyone has 3 minutes. At the end of 3 minutes, the red light goes on. Please stop talking. I will interrupt you. I'm that rude this time of the evening. So if you don't stop, I'll ask you to stop. And if you want to just say something that someone else has said and want to just kind of give a ditto, feel very comfortable doing that. We've received a tremendous amount of emails on one of our subjects this evening, so I know there'll be a lot of interest in speaking. So, and then finally, and I know this just goes without saying, rudeness doesn't help. Clapping doesn't help. I'll have to ask you to stop clapping if you think you've heard something that's just driven you to the moment of distraction and you got to clap your hands. Don't. Give me the silence. treatment or something. It just interrupts the flow. So thank you very much. And my first person signed up is Sarah Demling. We'd like to get your name, your ward or address, and then go for it.
My name is Sarah Doimling. I have a house at 2667 Orchard Heights Road Northwest. We also have a forest and a wood products, small wood products business in rural Polk County. We use the bridge both personally and for business. So I would like to speak to that subject tonight. Oregon has a Global Warming Commission, which every 2 years submits a report to the legislature detailing Oregon's progress in meeting its greenhouse gas reduction goals. Angus Duncan, chair of the Global Warming Commission, wrote in his introduction to this year's report, "This letter reflects my profound concern after 10 years as commission chair of whether we are rising to the challenge in meaningful and sufficient ways." He pointed to transportation emissions, which have been going up since 2013, as the state's mounting challenge. More miles are being driven in larger and less fuel-efficient cars. The hottest 20 years on record have all been in the past 30 years. I'm pretty convinced that climate change is by far our biggest issue, and that all the other issues we worry about, though important, pale if we don't have a livable community where our food systems and our energy systems and our health systems work. I could go on and on. Congestion on the bridges or anywhere else is a secondary problem. Reducing our carbon footprint is the real problem if we want a livable future. To me, it seems very selfish to put our short-term convenience ahead of the health of our children and grandchildren and the future livability of our community. Reducing congestion, on the other hand, is really not so hard. Drive less. If we had a creative, citywide, citizen-involved campaign to figure out and act upon all the many ways we as individuals and as a community could do this, results would be surprisingly quick and successful. And it came into my head, some of you old folks will remember this, ask not what your city can do for you, but what you can do for your city. And these are some thoughts I had, just a few, that we need to take all the discretionary trips at non-peak traffic hours, especially we who are retired. I'm not, but getting there. Have shuttle buses to state offices and the hospital every 5 minutes during rush hours. And we could make them free and still spend a teeny little bit of what it would cost to build a bridge. Have very generous opportunities for flex hours and or telecommuting for state jobs. Make biking and walking easy, pleasant, and safe, to name a few that cost next to nothing compared to a new bridge. Furthermore, they would all contribute to both a reduction in congestion and in our greenhouse gas footprint. I urgently recommend that we waste no more time and money on the fool's errand of a third bridge, but get together to make Salem a cleaner, healthier, happier, and more resilient community.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. Any questions? Patrick Singh, followed by Jeff Moorhead and David Turner.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Patrick Singh. I'm at 925 Commercial Street Southeast, Salem, Oregon. Here to represent, I'm a realtor here in Salem and also here to represent the Mid-Valley Association of Realtors. We are an association that represents 1,100 members throughout the Salem and greater Salem area. Realtors, lenders, home inspectors, escrow officers, and other folks who are involved in real estate and economic development. Want to also recognize our association president who's here, Patty Williamson, and our incoming president, Kelly Martin. We also have a number of other realtors and folks involved in the industry here supporting us today on Councilor Lewis's motion regarding the Land Use Board of Appeals Salem River Crossing decision. We conducted a poll with some folks last year that showed overwhelming support for a third bridge here in Salem. And we wanted to recognize and thank the work of the Congestion Relief Task Force that shows Salem's population will continue to increase, and that population growth and lack of other alternative routes will only increase congestion in the downtown area. We support these short-term projects that the task force has found, but we also support long-term solutions that help make sure that our community stays viable and livable. So, we support alternative models. Our association supports our alternative modes of transportation. We also support affordable housing and economic development. We want to make sure that all of our families, as well as our clients and those who are purchasing homes here in the area, have access to transportation that gets them to and from work and to school and other activities. And we hope that construction of a new bridge, although it would take many years, will allow us to move into next steps so that we can make sure that our quality of life here in Salem is upheld. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions? Jeff Moorhead, followed by David Turner, followed by TJ Sullivan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff. My name is Jeff Moorhead. I live in Ward 8, and I'm here to ask for support for Jim Lewis's motion regarding the bridge. One of the components of the LUBA decision was population, whether it was derived, how it was derived, but the fact of the matter is that Salem's population is increasing. We are finding a lot of people moving from the Portland area down into the Salem area, and a lot of those folks are moving into West Salem. Now, good or bad, the fact of the matter remains that West Salem's population is increasing, and it's projected that by 2067, West Salem's population will be 54,045 people. That's a projection from PSU and from the a projection of their population. So, having said that, an alternative bridge simply makes sense for long-range planning. That many people are not going to be able to continue to funnel onto the existing infrastructure that we have now. So I would highly encourage you to think about Councilor Lewis's motion and move forward with the FEIS so that they can make a record of decision. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. David Turner.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is David Turner. I live in South Salem, 212 Gregory Lane Southeast. And I'm here tonight to talk about something that's probably dwarfing in comparison, but your agenda item 3.3D, which is the Small Community Air Service Development Grant. The free market is a marvelous mechanism. It supports needed, wanted goods and services, and it discourages unneeded, unwanted goods and services. Now, what we know from history is in the past 3 decades, the free market has told us at least twice that commercial passenger flights in Salem are not a viable option. I read that the council is once again supporting efforts to apply for a $500,000 grant to explore commercial air service once again. And I know that it's primarily a chamber effort and not a council effort per se, but I would encourage the council to demonstrate prudent financial stewardship and reject efforts which will ultimately misdirect $500,000 and likely far more in taxpayer and other funds pursuing this activity. If business supports this, and apparently it does, then let business pay the entire cost, from a misguided start to a likely abysmal failure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. Any questions? Sally Cook? David, a question.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. So I just wanted to clarify, it's your understanding that the grant would be from the city's budget that they're applying for?
No, it's taxpayer dollars coming from somewhere. I don't remember the agency specifically.
Okay.
But it was, I think some of it involves some private money, but a lot of it is taxpayer money.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure we understand, the application that we're talking about has to come from the city because that's one of the things that has to be from the city. But it is the business community that will be producing that request, and that it won't be costing the city anything other than some staff time to review the application.
For now. But as the process develops, as it did before, I'm sure there will be much discussion about taxpayer money in subsidies, tax breaks, a number of different things that do involve taxpayer money for a service that has at least twice before failed.
So would you feel differently if there was not a need for taxpayer dollars, other than the grants that come from the state and federal government?
Okay, I missed the first part of the question.
If the city of Salem was not going to be a benefactor in this, they're not going to be putting in a lot of money, would you feel the same way?
No, because what's happening is the council has an opportunity to stop a process which at least twice before has failed and stop misdirection of taxpayer dollars, which could be better spent on other activities.
Right. Thank you very much. T.J. Sullivan, followed by Jim Griggs, followed by Kurt Arthur.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors. My name is T.J. Sullivan. I'm a resident of Ward 4 and also a former City Councilor and helped to start this process of the third bridge, second bridge, fourth bridge, whatever you want to call it, across the Willamette River that Councilor Lewis is pursuing tonight with his councilor motion. And when I was on council here is when Casey Duncan first started. I just want to say Casey actually looks better now than when he started with the city, which is unlike everyone else that I was with at that time. So good job, Casey, on that. You know, when we started this process, we were in lockstep with every other elected official from all of the surrounding municipalities. The only thing that's changed is the fact that the Salem City Council now has decided to pull back from this. And when I go out and I talk with folks in the community, nobody really ever knows what City Council does, and nobody really knows what you are doing right now with seemingly trying to let this bridge die a quiet death. And you have a responsibility as city councilors on something as big as this issue that has a lot of support in this community. In the name of transparency, you have a responsibility. If it is your desire to kill this thing, you need to be out holding town halls and letting people in this community know that your position is to kill this thing and to get feedback from them. But when I go and I talk to the parents on my basketball team or the parents on my Little League team, they have no idea. They think that the city is still pursuing a third bridge across the river. And when I explain to them where we're at in this process and why we're stalled, there's a lot of anger and frustration. And these are people who have kids that are hoping that their kids inherit this community, and to not put this bridge forward for some kind of a public vote is wrong, and it's cheating the residents of the city of Salem an opportunity to weigh in something that is critical to the livability of our community. And I've heard from the folks who have said, well, what about climate change? And what about the issue of transportation? And the state's own legislative revenue office, when they first started talking about cap and trade, showed a graph of our state. They showed the carbon emissions of this state, which are going down despite the population is going up. Our cars are becoming more efficient. We are all thinking about the decisions that we make and how it impacts our environment, because we all care about our environment. I have two kids, 13 and 11. I don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize their future. But to be able to move goods and services and people efficiently in a community is what makes it livable. And you do not want to be the council that's responsible for screwing this community over well into the future. At least give us a chance as a community to hear more about what this is going to look like, how much it's going to cost, and let us make up our minds if we want to buy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Any questions? Okay. Jim Griggs, followed by Kurt Arthur, followed by Nick Williams.
Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, my name is Jim Griggs. I live in Ward 2 at 260 Washington Street South. Prior to my fairly recent retirement, I also had an office in downtown Salem at the corner of State and High Street for a number of years, a law office, and most recently about 3 blocks from here. So I spent a lot of time in the downtown area of Salem. I'm here not only to support Councilor Lewis's motion, but also to ultimately urge you to move forward with a much-needed third bridge in this community. To try to put this in perspective for myself, I looked at what had gone on with the other two bridges that are here. The Center Street Bridge opened on July 30, 1918. The 1920 census indicated a population of 17,679 people. In 1954, 36 years later, after the Center Street Bridge was constructed, the Marion Street Bridge opened. The 1950 census for Salem was 43,110 people. This was an increase of 144% over the population when the Center Street Bridge was built. The 2017 population for Salem, roughly a year ago, was 169,798, which reflects an increase of 294% over the population at the time of the second bridge was built. 64 years have passed since our second bridge was constructed, and our population has quadrupled. We have 4 times more people here today than we did when the second bridge was built. You cannot ride enough bikes, you cannot try alternative modes of transportation enough to overcome the growth we are realizing. Our bridge infrastructure is failing and has failed our community. Many times, our business clients have told me in the past that they're reluctant to send anything to the western side of the Willamette after 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're concerned their trucks will be delayed or their trucks will be slow in coming back across the bridge and the business will be closed before their trucks return. Our two bridges congestion creates the same dilemma for anyone going north or south in our community. Our increasing congestion can only be cured if we come up with a third bridge solution that allows people to cross the Willamette east and west without going through the core of our community. We are crazy with traffic after 2 o'clock in this town. I urge your support of the continued discussion of this matter. Even if a decision were made tomorrow to proceed, it's going to be another 10 years before that bridge is completed. We will have another 100 to 200,000 people living here, and you're going to try to force them to ride their bikes and not take their cars?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kurt Arthur.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councilors. My name is Kurt Arthur. I reside at 3750 Augusta National Drive here in Salem. I'm also here tonight to support Councilor Lewis's motion, but I'm going to take a little different tactic. I'm not here tonight to ask you to support building a third bridge. I'm not asking you to support not building a third bridge. What I'm here tonight is to tell you that I'm supporting the process. This is a process that's been going on, ladies and gentlemen, for 15 to 20 years in this form, many other decades before this. What I'm here is to support the hundreds of people that have come before any of us that have worked on this, both elected officials and community officials. As city councilors, as the mayor, as the staff of the city of Salem, I'm not asking you to act any differently than you would when you're facing any critical decision that you're currently looking at. When you have any critical decision that comes before this body, I know each one of you takes an awful lot of time to make sure that you have the right information, complete, comprehensive information, factual information, information from your constituents, information from the Salem-Keizer marketplace before you enter into a final decision. If you do not approve Councilor Lewis's motion tonight, it is not a motion to build a bridge. It is a motion to continue the process. It's a motion to make sure that each one of you and us as a community is armed with a bank of information for us to make the best, most viable decision for this community and our transportation needs moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Arthur. Nick Williams, followed by Linda Byerly, followed by Marilee McCabe.
Mayor Bennett, councilors, my name is Nick Williams. I reside in Ward 8 and I work within Ward 1, driving the treacherous 2.5 miles from West Salem to downtown Salem on a daily basis. And again, I'll echo Kurt's comments. This is not about a bridge. This is about a process, but also a process that comes with strings attached. And jumping off of the boat at this point is going to cost us as taxpayers a lot of money as we look at how to repay the $9 million that's come from the Federal Highway Administration. By continuing on within this process, even if it's determined by voters at some point within the future that this is not going to be a very feasible, feasible objective for our community, at least the Federal Highway Administration will have paid the bill for us to have gotten to that point. So thank you. I know that leadership is not easy, particularly with these big decisions. I thank you for doing it as a volunteer leader, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Linda Beerley, followed by Marilee McCabe, followed by Kathy Clark.
Good evening. Linda Beerley, 2308 Ptarmigan Street Northwest. And I just wanted to speak in opposition to Councilor Lewis's motion. And I think everybody here knows how I feel about this bridge. But a lot has been said about congestion. This version of the bridge will make congestion worse. And that's not from me, that's from ODOT. We had an ODOT person come to our neighborhood association meeting, and he said that this version of the bridge was never intended to address mobility, that some intersections might be made a little better, but he said some of them are going to be a lot worse as a result of this bridge. So please take that into consideration. If I were you, I wouldn't spend this staff time. As I understand it, your resources are limited right now, and I know staff time is expensive. I just hope that you defeat this motion and let this version of the bridge go away. Maybe someday we might need a bridge, but this one would not make things better. It would make things worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Marilee McCabe, followed by Kathy Clark, followed by Sam Brentano.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett and council members. My name is Marilee McCabe, and I reside at 1007 Parkway Drive Northwest. That's West Salem. My husband and I have lived in the same part of West Salem for 40 years. I'm here tonight to urge you to oppose Councilor Lewis's motion regarding the Salem River Crossing. We all know that climate change is here and that a major cause of it is burning of fossil fuels. And a major burner of fossil fuels is motor vehicles. What we know now, much more clearly than we knew even a few more months ago, is that addressing the issue is in a serious way must not be postponed any longer. We need your leadership right now to address the issue of climate change as a city. One way you can fulfill your role as leaders of our community is to say no once and for all to the retrograde attempt to build another major facility which has the sole purpose of encouraging and rewarding the use of fossil fuel burning vehicles. Now is the time to send a clear message to the citizens of the community that you are serious about addressing climate change and that you do not want to add to the hydrocarbon load our poor planet is suffering under now. Thank you for your thoughtful leadership at this turning point in the history of Salem and the planet.
Thank you. Kathy Clark, Mayor Clark.
Good evening. Mayor Bennett, members of the Salem City Council and staff. For the record, my name is Kathy Clark. I serve as the mayor of Kaiser. I also serve as the chair of the Salem-Kaiser Area Transportation Study, affectionately known as SCATS. This is our metropolitan planning organization, which deals with federal funding for projects in our Salem-Kaiser metropolitan area. A few weeks ago, or at our last meeting, SCATS passed a letter, which you have in your packet, supporting Councilor Lewis's motion that we complete this process. I agree with Mr. Arthur that this is for completing a process we began collaboratively 12 years ago to come to a preferred alternative that we can then go forward to look at how we can start to add additional capacity from passing from one side of the river to the other, rather than funneling everything through one portal in the Marion and Polk County area. This is a time that we encourage the city to go ahead and finish these last pieces that are necessary to complete the environmental impact statement, the preferred alternative then be sent forward so we can get a record of decision. Then we as a community, a regional community from Detroit to Lincoln City that is affected by the inability right now to be able to pass between one side of the Willamette River and the other, here in the Mid-Willamette Valley, can then look at what are we going to do collectively to build more capacity and to connect the two sides of the river. Currently, having everything run through one portal, which in natural systems is never a healthy situation. I have a degree in environmental science and biology. Nature doesn't do that, put everything in one place, all of its eggs in one basket, so to speak. It would be like saying everybody who needs to cross I-5 needs to do that at Market Street. So if you're coming from the downtown area, South Salem, or the east side, everybody has to go across I-5 at Market Street. We haven't done that. We've got a lot of crossings past there. We asked you to complete this process, let us finish it, then we as communities, regional partners can address this together. I also want to point out that the Kaiser City Council did pass a resolution supporting this as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Brentano.
Good evening. So I have, first of all, I'm Sam Brentano. I'm Marion County Commissioner. I live at 605 West Main in Sublimity. I have 3 minutes to try to convince you of something you feel real passionate about. I'm just laughing at myself. I couldn't even convince my wife that I didn't want that stale turkey again and how much better pizza, but I always try, and so I'm going to try with you. Around the world and throughout history, communities strive or fail because of the transportation systems, and the success of Salem's system is vital to the entire region, and that's why I'm here. This is a regional issue. It's not just a Salem issue, just as Mayor Clark was trying or did say. People and goods need to get through Salem-Kaiser, but our system is entirely vulnerable, be it accident, incident, structural problems, capacity, or worst case, a major earthquake. We have no good alternatives. Think about it. The next place you could go is Newburgh or Albany, perhaps Boone Bridge. You think they'd be there? I don't. And that's why it's so important we continue on a path to try to minimize those vulnerabilities. I had a longer list. I'll just make it two that I've heard from opposition that I don't believe at all. One, there's going to be fewer drivers. And how can that be when Salem-Kaiser expected to grow by 24% by 2035? It should be the same numbers Jim Grigg was saying. We're growing. How the bridges can't handle it today. How can they handle more? And then I always hear there'll be no federal or state help, and that just isn't true. The question is how much, and our community leaders are going to have to go out and find that money if it's ever going to be built. We have done that before. We've done it in Woodburn and Staten, and we've even done it in Newburgh, Dundee. So that's not impossible. But to go around and say there'll be no help, that's just wrong. So my ask is that you put aside your personal preference, finish the environmental impact statement, and put it in the hopper, and keep the process moving. The questions on financing and build and no build will be answered in the future. But in the meantime, people will know where those structures would be and they can plan accordingly. And my last statement, this is a generational opportunity and decision. It's been hinted at it by TJ. He said it probably better than I do. But we won't have this opportunity again for decades. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Raquel Moore Green, then, Ben Punley, okay, and Carl Harbaugh.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett. Good evening, councilors and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Raquel Moore Green. I reside in Ward 3 at 1557 Webster Drive Southeast. And tonight I'm here to echo the appeal. And I want to appeal to your sense of fairness and equity in the matter of allowing item 5A to move forward this evening. Tried and true processes should not be feared. Rather, they should be embraced with confidence in the goodwill of everybody that is involved. Once again, I appeal to you and your sense of fairness and equity in voting, to vote in support of the motion put forth by Councilor Lewis this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel. Any questions? Okay. Ben, and then Carl Harbaugh, followed by Mike Erdman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors. This will be my first council meeting, but I thought this was a very important issue. I moved into, my address, 980 Burley Hill Drive, Northwest. Ben Punley. And when I moved into West Salem about 18 years ago, we built our house there, and the traffic wasn't all that terrible. But over the years, I've been noticing that it gets even worse. Now, some people talk about like the carbon emissions from your cars. Well, when I'm sitting on the bridge for, 10, 20 minutes, my car's taking up, putting out a lot of emissions. And so that was one of the points I wanted to bring up. The other point is that our population is growing in West Salem. When I moved in, I could see Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood, and Mount Rainier. Yeah. And then somebody built their house and blocked my view. And so now, if you look around my hills, there's houses all over the place. You go up the hill, there's houses being built. And with that many new people coming in, we are going to need another way to get people out of that area. Anyway, that was pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. Any questions? Carl Harbaugh, followed by Mike Erdman, followed by Jim Allheiser.
Hello, my name is Carl Harbaugh. I own a company called Southtown Glass here in Salem. A lot of the things I would like to have said are already said. Number one, the fact that it's a huge bottleneck for this whole entire area, not just Salem, all the surrounding areas. When I want to go across the river, a lot of times I drive to Independence and go that direction. Now I go to Independence and try to go across that bridge, and it's jammed up. You can hardly get off the bridge. They're probably going to have to put in a light up there. I don't like computers. I don't like to have bridges, but we got to have them. I hate the things. They are so hard for me to work on. It's new to me, but I got to get through it, and I got to get it done. And I think this is something you guys need to get done too. You may not like the bridge, but it's going to save us time and money and a lot of effort in the future. And I think we need to just do this thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike Erdman, followed by Jim Allheiser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Mike Erdman with the Home Builders Association of Marion and Polk Counties, 2075 Madrona Avenue Southeast. We support strongly the motion to have the city respond to the LUBA remand. The existing bridges, as we know, they're over capacity now, and if we don't deal with something, we've got a looming transportation nightmare on our hands. If you look at where Salem's going to grow in future decades, a lot of that, if not most of it, is going to be West Salem. If you just look at the map of vacant land in the UGB. Salem's growing, our Polk County communities are growing. If you look at Dallas, for example, Dallas built a third the number of new homes last year as Salem did. Those folks aren't biking in. They're not biking in from Dallas. This is a need that the region has got, and the city's got a responsibility to continue this process. And remember that the numbers you look at in the draft EIS really only go out for, I think it's 2031. It's only 12 or 13 years from now. And so when you look at the future growth we're going to have decades beyond that, this is something that this community desperately needs, not just in 2031 at the end of the EIS study period, but in the decades beyond that. Of course, much of the opposition that we've heard in recent months has been on the cost of the bridge. But what I tell you is that really has nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about responding to the LUBA remand and continuing the process. And you know what? The community may decide that this bridge is too expensive, at least in the form that it's currently drafted. But that should be the community's decision to decide whether they're willing to pay for the bridge and buy the infrastructure that's needed. And of course, if we fail to allow this process to move forward, we preclude other funding options. In fact, I know if there's a private company on the East Coast that's already expressed interest in potentially building the bridge if it could be privately tolled. But again, that could be no cost to the citizens other than those that wanted to use that tolled bridge. But we'd preclude that if we kill this project now and not allow it to continue forward. The poll has been mentioned. Excuse me, we in the Chamber and the Realtors commissioned a poll last year. And as mentioned, it was a scientifically valid poll, 5.5% margin of error. 77% of folks support the bridge, 19% opposed. I'm not sure you get that kind of support for free beer. That is overwhelming support, folks. And it's in every single one of your wards as well. Obviously, West Salem was 91% support. But gosh, you look North Salem, 69% support to 17% opposition. South Salem, it was 78% support to 16% opposition. East Salem, 63% support to 27% opposition. And there's no discernible difference at all. It was like 1% between Republicans, Democrats, Independents. This is something that is universal support throughout the community, regardless of political party and even regardless of area of town. We also asked voters, would they be willing to pay higher property taxes or gas taxes to pay for that bridge? And there's still strong, strong support for the bridge. Voters in Salem recognize the need for the bridge, and they've shown they're willing to pay for it. And so we'd certainly encourage you to continue the process. We'd encourage you to respond to the LUBA remand and allow the process to continue forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erdman. Any questions? Okay. Jim Allheiser, followed by Rob Wallace, followed by Ron Well.
Even Mayor, City Councilors. My name is Jim Allheiser, and I'm here in behalf of the West Salem Neighborhood Association. And a few years ago, West Salem community came together, a community that exceeds more than 28,000 residents. They came together and they wanted to voice a strong support for moving forward with the Salem River Crossing. And we would like to ask Salem Council to continue this process, address the LUBA issues, and move forward with the Salem River Crossing. For more than a decade, hundreds of people have been involved with developing the various corridors and potential bridgeheads. And I hope that we've all had a chance to read the SCATS report with the history of this bridge development. That was really interesting and fabulous. Me, for one, enjoyed it because I'm just beginning to get started in this. For some reason, it seemed like there was some confusion on whether we needed a bridge. But anyways, there are very few, if any, people that were actually involved in the original starting of this bridge development. And it seems irresponsible to me to throw out millions of dollars and hundreds of hours of their work because we've recently shown up and we don't really understand the work that's been done. We in West Salem are uniquely cut off from the rest of Salem. Lancaster, Kubler, commercial streets all have alternative routes, meaning to get from point A to point B. The bridges are a regional issue, and there are very few people that I speak with in all of Salem that think we should have large trucks, farm machinery, and bumper-to-bumper traffic at least twice a day through the middle of its downtown urban area. That kind of traffic is bad for our downtown. We in West Salem would like the City Council to support Salem residents, county commissioners, and all of the cities around Salem who understand that Salem is a great place to live, and one bridge crossing stifles growth and restricts productive life. We hope that the City Council decides to support positive growth for its residents by addressing the LUBA issue and moving forward on the Salem River Crossing and not strangling us into submission by failing to provide basic, obvious, and needed infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Rob Wallace, followed by Ron Weil, and then and then Rich Fry.
Hello, I'm Rob Wallace. I live in Ward 8, and I support Councilman Lewis's motion. I am a taxpayer. I live in West Salem. I'm a parent. This thing is going to not only affect me, it's going to affect my children. It's going to affect my children's children. And it's important to move this on. I don't understand why City Council just continues to let this issue fester. It just seems irresponsible when you look at the entire support from the rest of the region. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Any questions? Ron? Okay. Rich Fry? Are you Ron?
Yes, yes.
You want to come on up and speak? Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't.
I'm sorry, I may have mispronounced your name, too.
No.
Well, it happens once in a while.
This morning, I got it's kind of like my first education on this whole thing. My name's Ron Whitwell. I live out in South Salem. Ever since high school, I've been a Salem driver here. But I didn't get all. I didn't have. I got some additional statistics this morning on the Newsmaker radio program on KYKN radio, where Mike Evans was a speaker, and he's involved with the Salem Bridge Solutions. And that's where I got some, updates on just my own personal experience driving down Marion Street anytime after 4, basically. The backup that goes all the way back to the Revenue Building. And more commonly, when I'm coming into town on South Commercial, and many times when it's really critical is I'm trying to go over to Wallace Road. The logical way to do that, it was to take a left on Ferry, and that hooks you around on the Parkway, and then you can hop on the axis there onto the Marion Street Bridge. I think everybody's fully aware of just having to wait more, as well as the traffic pretty much preventing or stalling a lot of downtown shopping business. People just try to get through it and get around it. But I want to say also a safety factor, trying to get from the left lane of the Marion Street Bridge. You have to cross into 3 lanes to your right to get down to Wallace Road, and that's very difficult any time of day. So I just wanted to add my support to the measure from the councilor here, Councilor Lewis. I haven't actually met him, but I again learned this morning about the growth in Salem, and much more down, just listening to these previous speakers, that the population of Salem has quadrupled since '54, and it's going, according to the program this morning, it's going to go up 1% a year from there. And this would definitely, I think, is pretty critical, not just for convenience, but for traffic safety as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Rich Fry, followed by Roberta Cade, and then Sharon Nix.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Rich Fry. I live in Ward 4. I'm also the president of the Planning Commission here in Salem. I'm just finishing my 8th year here, and I will tell you that traffic and congestion is one of the major things that we hear about at our Planning Commission meetings. People come to us and talk about Wallace Road. They come and talk to us about other roads in our community where they feel that we have a lot of congestion. And I think that for this council to not go forward with this motion is depriving the community of the chance to speak their mind. If you look at tonight's presenters, it's about 75-25 in favor of this motion going forward. And I think that that's a good representation of our community. And I think that it's not fair for 5 or 6 people to keep the rest of the community from being able to have a voice in this, to kill this process by simply ignoring it. So I would ask for everyone to vote in favor of this tonight so the process can go forward and those of us that live in the community can have our voice heard. And I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fry.
Thank you.
Roberta Cade, followed by Sharon Nix.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett, councilors. My name is Roberta Cade. I live in Ward 7 now, having recently moved from Ward 8. I'm here because I want you to consider a no on the motion. We have been working on this, some of us anyway, for many, many years. We have learned that it is not a regional bridge, it's a local bridge, and it will only be paid for by Marion and Polk County residents, that the state and federal dollars, according to Mr. Chickering, will be very limited. It's not going to be paid for by people in Lincoln County, for instance. I want you to know that this bridge would be built in an earthquake liquefaction zone. This is not a place to build anything. It will collapse in the Cascadia earthquake, and there will be nothing else you could do to get across the bridge, because the two bridges that do exist now are in bedrock, so you'll be stuck using those bridges. And we can make changes. This is all about climate change. We need to reduce our footprint, and we can add lanes to each of those bridges. We already know we can add one lane to each of the existing bridges. We can improve working with chariots to get some public transportation going back and forth, creating perhaps some kind of a park and ride situation. One of the things we know is that expanding capacity for traffic creates more traffic ultimately. Los Angeles spent $1.6 billion to widen 405, and the number of cars increased to fill the lanes. Traffic did not move more quickly. We know that climate change is affecting our own Oregon fishermen. They are suing the fossil fuel industries. We know that we have one of the most underfunded systems in the nation when it comes to transportation. We have to think outside the box. We need to be more creative and growing our public transportation. Even Portland is decreasing parking spaces to make more room for bikes and alternate transit. We can lead the nation in this. If not, then we can at least lead Salem. We're a little bit behind on even Portland, but I think we can do better. And it doesn't need the motion to go forward to do that. Let's build smarter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sharon Nix, Marty Hyen, and Jeff Hyen.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Sharon Nix. I am a 53-year resident of Oregon. Over 30 years of that has been spent in Polk County. Right now, I am a resident of Ward 8, and I encourage you to pass this, to get going on this. It's beyond time. It's past time to get going on it and get it done. The reasons for that, I know we've talked about levels of emissions, and the idea of emissions sound great, except when you're backed up on Highway 22 out by Costco, and I wonder about the level of emissions as the cars are idling through town from all directions at many different hours during the day. Our traffic this is a regional issue. Our traffic is regional. It's not a local, it's not a Salem, it's not a community thing. This is a main thoroughfare from east to west, northeast to west, west to east, and it needs to be dealt with. And broadening those couple of lanes on the bridge is fine, but then how do you address the issue of the other traffic that's coming through on 2 lanes any direction? It needs to be dealt with. Alternative methods of transportation aren't viable, because again, it's a regional issue, it's not a community issue, it's not a Salem issue, and you have how many employees that work in Polk County and drive to Salem? How many people from outside the community that come to Salem to work or come to Salem to shop? And personally, I know of friends that live in Monmouth, Independence, and the Dallas areas that are now taking their shopping to Corvallis and to McMinnville because of the traffic congestion that they encounter in Salem. So in order to keep the businesses going and the community strong in Salem, this is an issue that really needs to be addressed, and quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Marty?
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. My name is Marty Hyen. I live in Ward 5. So the Cascadia event will happen. and those bridges will fail regardless of bedrock. I don't want you to be known as the people responsible for what will happen if we don't at least take a look at the big picture here and move forward with Councilor Lewis's motion. So to change things up, because we've heard a lot of bridge talk tonight, and I couldn't make the last meeting, I'd like to talk about the ban of the month. And I forgot to bring my prop. Maybe my husband will bring it to me. People love our country because of the freedom and liberty found here. They are not rushing the borders trying to get into a socialist or communist countries, are they? People want freedom, not government controlling every aspect of their lives. You swore to uphold the Constitution when you took this office. From what I see, the bag ban is unconstitutional. Let's look at a part of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction equal protection under the laws. This bag ban does not provide equal protection. You exempt Oregon Trail and WIC recipients. What about the others that live on a severely limited income? Seniors and disabled peoples that are not on welfare. They don't get free reusable bags or paper bags. And then who pays for these free reusable and plastic or paper bags? There was a time in my life when I had to hawk possessions to eat. I wasn't on welfare, but the bag charge would have been harmful to me. You force some businesses to charge some people, and you tell them when and how much, and when some may prefer to offer the paper as a service to their customers to help them stay competitive, you don't allow this. This is manipulation of persons and businesses. Why did you remove the word single use? Because you found out people reuse them. If you insist on this bag ban, more plastic will be purchased at the store. I will have to purchase my garbage liners. These will be one use. The net reduction will be zero. And I'm running out of time. But can you imagine Christmas shopping next year, and instead of this huge bag full of all your linens and gifts, you're going to have, what, 10 paper bags? I think we have more pressing issues like homelessness instead of this sneaky grocery tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Hyan, followed by Jeff Miller.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Jeff Hyan. I live at 3060 31st Avenue Northeast in Salem. And just for the record, I was born here, so I have a little bit of experience in the community. 25 years ago, I was chairman of Lansing Neighborhood Association, too. And so I want to talk to you about two things. One, the motion by Mr. Lewis here. To that, 25 years ago when I was chair, we were here talking to you about a bridge. What's happened? Nothing. Okay, we found ways to stall and delay it, and it seems like we found another. I really encourage you guys to finish the process as everybody has outlined and be fair about this. This process needs to be active, okay? Other cities are asking for this infrastructure improvement. I know you got a letter from Independence. You've got Kaiser people that are all over the place. This is not just a local issue, okay? Secondly, we need to improve for our earthquake preparedness. As Marty noted, this bridge will fail, okay? You need a bridge somewhere, okay? Maybe not here, but somewhere. Secondly, this has been desired, again, for 30-plus years. We need to move on. Second issue, plastic bags. I'll be a little bit shorter. One, this is unneeded. Covanta burns all your garbage, folks. None of our plastic bags that we don't decide to use and we throw away are going in the ground and are going to do whatever. They're burned. Okay, so you're dealing with a problem that is really not a problem. Secondly, yes, it's unequally applied. It's likely not unconstitutional, okay, or likely is unconstitutional. If you're going to make a law, apply it to everybody. Across the board, no exceptions, okay? And thirdly, really, folks, we're becoming a nanny state here. We're following the lead of our state government, unfortunately, and we're making laws where there don't need to be laws. People are smart enough to reuse these things over and over and over again like I do. When they finally are done, they got dog doo-doo in them and they go away. But they are used for a lot of other stuff. Secondly, or thirdly, this drives away people and business from moving here because we're over-regulated. You want to improve the quality of life, remove regulations, don't add them. People want the freedom, like my wife noted. That's why people are breaking down our borders to get into this country, is for freedom, not because they want more regulations. I think they want less. And thirdly, get ready to lose business, folks. I was here 25 years ago when Mayor Swaim was here and you guys drove away all the business. Things shifted, council became more reasonable, and here we are back again. So I have faith in our community. We'll figure it out and we'll correct things. But in the meantime, I hope you guys will reconsider your position on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Miller.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett. Thank you to you and the councilors for allowing us to come down and give support or not support for whatever thing we're talking about. I personally am here to support Mr. Lewis's motion to move this process forward. I know there's been a lot of positive feedback so far, and I really don't have much more to add other than 2 quick points. One is, if you look at West Salem as a percentage of customers, I know the city always talks about customers, and we as taxpayers are customers, and it seems to me that looking at approximately 20% of your customer base is in West Salem, and that's just in the city limits, not urban growth boundary. It doesn't talk about businesses. It doesn't talk about people from downtown that are going across, anything, any staff people that are going from other wards across. I think it's important to address that people that are going back and forth need West Salem. City needs West Salem needs downtown, et cetera. It's silly to not move forward with the process, at least to move forward with this whole LUBA thing. And then secondly, we talk about the cost of the bridge and it's not feasible, whatever the excuses are. The reality is the city will also use, in the past have used statements like, well, we got to build the police station because if we wait 10 more years, it's going to be another $1 billion, which is an exaggeration, I'm just saying. Or retrofitting the library and doing things of that nature. Construction costs are going up. The longer we delay this, the far more expense is going to be incurred on the taxpayers. So that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Nathan. Followed by Mike Evans and Craig Evans.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett, City Councilors. I'm here tonight, Nathan Wirch, resident of Ward 8, run a business in Ward 1, and my wife and I have a rental in Ward 2. Here tonight on both a personal and professional nature. I'm a third generation West Salem resident, business owner or manager, and parent. My grandfather dealt with this issue in 1954 when they put up the second bridge. My father dealt with this issue in the 80s when they were talking about it, and we're talking about it again, once again. On the professional level, I'm here on behalf of the West Salem Business Association. We support Councilor Lewis's motion to move forward. And as Kurt Arthur mentioned, this is not, do we build it or do we not build it? As TJ mentioned, it's the process that we need to go through. You cannot fail as city councilors, the rest of the region, SCATS, City of Kaiser, Independence, you name it. You cannot fail the rest of the region in making a decision to not move this forward. So on behalf of the West Salem Business Association, on behalf of being a resident here in Salem all of my life, please move this forward.
Thank you. Mike Evans. There you are.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Mike Evans, and I live in Ward 8. I'm here tonight as a representative of Salem Bridge Solutions to ask you to complete the EIS and give our community the opportunity to choose whether to build the new bridge. In making this decision, I ask you to consider a cost-benefit analysis. So what are the costs and benefits of finishing the EIS? The cost of finishing the EIS is essentially nothing as the city staff simply have to send a response to LUBA with 3 simple fixes. On the benefit side, completing the EIS will not commit us to build it, but allow us to if we choose, giving us the freedom to decide if this is the solution we want to solve our congestion problem. It will also help us keep good relations with our local, state, and federal government partners who've worked on this project together with us for the last 12 years. So what are the costs of not completing the EIS? Well, the costs of not finishing this process are huge. It costs us our only option to build a bridge for our region in the next 25 years. It wastes nearly 13 years of work and studies and over $8 million to get to this point. It costs us quality of life. According to some, it just costs us a bit of time. But what does that add up to? Well, using data from the task force report, it adds up to a huge loss for our community. When you do the math, we're wasting at least 1,872,000 hours idling in traffic to cross our bridge each year. What could we do with that time? Spend it with our families? Volunteer in our community? It costs us economically. What is the value of that much time? If a person's time is worth $20 an hour, having each of us sit in our vehicles an extra 16 minutes a day is costing us $37 million a year. It costs us environmentally. The 2009 Environmental Defense Fund study, Idling Gets You Nowhere, finds serious negative environmental, health, and economic effects of idling traffic that disproportionately harms vulnerable populations. This includes many tons of CO2 that are unnecessarily emitted. So what is the benefit of not completing it? Eliminating our only option to build a bridge? So if you can't find a really good reason not to, I encourage you to vote for Jim's motion to complete the EIS. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Lewis.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for coming down. I'm curious because it was last Monday night when we were sort of talking about the Salem River Crossing. Councilor Nanke mentioned idling in the millions, and I just that took me back then, and you're mentioning it again. I'm curious, where does it come from?
Okay, well, when you look at the Congestion Task Force data, they talk about how many minutes, extra minutes, it's costing us every day as we go across or wait to go across the bridges, really. So we have 3 hours of that highly congested traffic, and during that time, it's 7 extra minutes in the morning, and it's 9 extra minutes at night, and we've got 9,000 vehicles per hour going slowly crawling through that, right? Well, that's 27,000 vehicles a day doing 16 minutes. If you do that times 5 days a week, times 52 weeks out of the year, you end up with 69.33, basically almost 2 full work weeks of time that people are sitting in traffic. How's that for a vacation? There's your vacation, sit in traffic for 2 full work weeks. Well, if you take that and you multiply that 69 hours per person, and we're assuming 1 person, maybe there's 2 people in the car, but per person, that's 1,872,000 hours. And again, if your time is worth anything, if it's worth $20 an hour, that's $37 million a year. Gone. Out of our economy, out of our time. It's not invested in our community. We aren't doing anything positive with it. So those are the real numbers. That's what it's costing us.
Okay. Thank you very much. Craig Evans.
That's a hard act to follow. Good evening. I'm Craig Evans. I live at 1345 37th Avenue Northwest. Thanks for taking your time this evening. So this evening, as you consider whether to move forward and complete the EIS and respond to the LUBA remands, I believe the central issue is one of trust. For over 12 years, hundreds of our community members have worked together with city staff, ODOT, SCATs, and officials from other jurisdictions that are affected by our outdated and inadequate transportation infrastructure. This has been a massive collaborative process with much give and take in response to stakeholder input, which has resulted in consensus of the best path forward. Of course, it's not a perfect solution, but it's the one our community has chosen. Now the question before this council is whether this investment of countless hours of time and many millions of dollars will be honored by directing staff to complete the last few steps. As we know, this doesn't mean the building of a new bridge is a certainty, but it would make it a possibility. I'm hopeful that this council will first choose to honor the efforts and sacrifices made in good faith by all of those who have contributed to this process thus far, and ultimately will trust the wisdom of the people of Salem to determine if and when they would support the construction of a new bridge. This council has shown leadership on big issues in the past. When you recognized that our police facilities were inadequate and unsafe, you trusted the good people of Salem to invest in our community, and we did. When you recognized that the library was unsafe because of the looming Cascadia earthquake, you led and trusted Salemites to invest in our community, and we did. And again, you recognized that the safety and capacity of our schools was inadequate, and our community, and asked our community to support the Salem-Keizer School District in their efforts to pass a new bond measure, and we did. Salem is populated by good, honest, hardworking folks that have the integrity and wisdom to make important decisions like these. You already know about the polling that's been done, where 77% of the community across the board has supported building a new bridge. But of course, that's not binding. My hope is that this council will have the humility to set aside whatever your personal preferences are and trust the people to decide if they are willing to support a new bridge. My question to this council is this: do you trust this community to make this choice? If you do, please move forward with Jim's proposal and answer the LUBA remands so we can find out.
Councilor Lewis.
Got to ask the twin question, and thanks for dressing differently so we can recognize who's who. The survey that you mentioned has come up several times. Can you be a little bit more elaborate about the survey and what was in it?
Well, there's a lot of data, and I've brought a copy, and we'll submit it for the record. Yeah, it was conducted by the Nelson Report. There were 315 registered Salem voters surveyed, 45% male, 55% female, all age ranges. Just a really good, broad cross-section of our community, and overall 77%, highest in West Salem, but I think the low was like 69%, and so people want this. I mean, it's really, that's the truth of the matter is, I know that the people of this community value their freedoms, value the ability to serve their community, and really they simply want the opportunity to vote on this themselves. And we appreciate all of the volunteer time that you guys give, which is actually quite a sacrifice that you make, but feel like it would be wrong to deny people the opportunity, and particularly when you've got an issue where 77% of your community believes in it.
Thank you very much. Mike Studer, followed by Linda Wallmark, followed by Steve Anderson.
Mike Studer, resident of South Salem, 5381 Woodscape Drive Southeast. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for taking the time here, your volunteer time. I'm not the most impassioned or informed speaker that you'll hear tonight, so I'll keep it very brief. As a healthcare provider and business owner both in South Salem and in West Salem, I'll tell you, I've been serving patients in the Salem area for a quarter of a century now, and most of my clients are geriatric or have neurologic impairments. A number of them have been served well by us. A number of them refuse to ever see us in the first place because of concerns of traffic and congestion. Access to health care, which should resonate with all of us, is a main factor that should be considered here. We have individuals on both sides of the bridge that refuse to travel to exceptional health care that they can receive on either side because of their fear of the traffic and the congestion that they'll experience. Out of respect of your time and for respect for the other impassioned and informed speakers that have been here tonight, I'll leave my comments at that unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Studer. Linda Walmart, Steve Anderson, followed by Doug Doty.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Linda Walmark, and I live in Ward 3. And I'm speaking this evening on behalf of 350 Salem, Oregon, which is the local chapter of 350.org, which is the grassroots international organization of climate activists. And first, we want to thank Mayor Bennett for convening the Congestion Task Force, and we want to thank the members of that task force for all of their hours and hard work that they put in on it. 350 Salem, Oregon supports implementation of the 15 short-term recommendations of the Congestion Task Force, and we oppose efforts to revive the Salem River Crossing project. And I want to address those related issues within the broader context of climate change. There are 2 recent scientific reports that highlight the significance of how we address our congestion problem. Last month, the United Nations International Panel on Climate Change produced a special report stating that we have 12 years to make the dramatic changes necessary to meet the Paris climate goal of keeping global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The effects of exceeding this goal would be catastrophic. Extreme heat waves over 1/3 of the planet, loss of virtually all of the world's coral reefs, and more. So what about the effects here in Oregon? Well, just days ago, the 4th National Climate Change Assessment was released to Congress, and it predicts more prolonged droughts, water scarcity, harmful algal blooms, wildfires, and human health effects in the Pacific Northwest. It calls on federal, state, and local governments to, quote, take aggressive action to protect U.S. residents by both reining in emissions and helping communities adapt to climate impacts that are now inevitable, end quote. Drought, water scarcity, harmful algal blooms, wildfires, negative human health effects. Sound familiar? We have seen and experienced all these things in Oregon just in the last year. And climate change is happening here and now, and these impacts will only continue to magnify and grow over the coming years. Yet tonight we are again looking at reviving a plan to build a 3rd bridge, which would, according to our own regional transportation planning organization, increase our carbon emissions. It would also squander precious time and attention and cost taxpayers $500 million. We must allocate our limited resources toward adaptive measures and decreasing emissions rather than diverting them toward expensive projects which actually increase emissions. We truly are at a turning point in human history, and the alarms are blaring. Let's pursue the solutions that acknowledge scientific facts. The stakes are too high to ignore. The Council is right to focus on alternatives to the 3rd bridge. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Lewis.
Linda, thanks for coming down. I'm hoping you can answer this question, but I recall seeing a percentage of the greenhouse gas emissions that are tied to automobiles. Do you know what percentage that is?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I know it is one of the leading sectors for greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, and I think I remember it was in like the 40-something percentile. 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from automobiles that use gasoline.
That sounds about right.
Would you feel any differently about the transportation systems that we're talking about tonight if that 42% virtually went away?
And explain a little bit more what you're thinking of. Like if we all of a
Well,
sudden were driving electric cars.
Over a period of time, sure. Electric cars, solar-powered cars, anything but gasoline-powered cars.
I thought about that question a lot, and I don't see that happening soon enough, Councilor Lewis, because timing is very critical, and we need to be diverting those resources toward getting electrical cars and to set up the kind of infrastructure that we need for electrical cars as opposed to building a third bridge.
Yeah, and my pushback, Linda, is this: if you don't see that as even a possibility, then how could it be possible that using the bridge systems that we have today, 20, 30, 40 years from now, what if people don't get out of their gasoline-powered cars?
Well, 24 or 30 years from now, people don't get out of our gasoline-powered cars, we're in deep trouble. And we will be looking at a very different world.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councilor Anderson.
Thanks, Linda. I'm interested in something you said where you indicated that under the build alternative, that would actually increase carbon emissions from motor-powered, fossil fuel-powered vehicles. How did you arrive at that conclusion, or where did you get that conclusion?
I got that conclusion, actually, I have it on my phone right now, and it's out of one of SCAT's publications. It's a chart, Table 5.2-1. I don't know exactly what the document is, but it's the Operational Energy Consumption Summary for Automobiles and Trucks. Design year 2040, preferred alternative, the gasoline consumption actually goes up. And I'm assuming that part of that is because we will have some population growth, but also because of this whole idea of induced traffic.
Councilor Lewis.
Just want to make sure I understand. You're talking about 2040, which is 22 years from now, right?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay.
I hope we make it that long.
Thank you, Linda. Steve Anderson, followed by Doug Doty, followed by, Brent.
Good evening. Steve Anderson, Ward 8. This is not a discussion about a bridge, as has been said. I support a bridge and improved infrastructure in West Salem, but it's a question of Councilman Lewis's motion, which will advance further work on the Salem alternative versus not doing that. It's using limited city resources, or it's a difference between the preferred alternative and the no-build alternative, which SCAT said in their letter to you is a possibility as part of this process. Let me explain. June 2013, City Council made a decision to drop the 4D alternative and go forward with the preferred alternative. In February 2014, SCAT approved that and sent that forward with a recommendation to reduce lanes from 6 to 4, change the east-west and the north-south accesses to that road, and et cetera. This decision was a failed decision in the process of this bridge decision, in that in the preferred alternative, as it goes forward, ODOT spoke to West Salem Neighborhood Associations and said this decision was a result of compromise and trade-off, and that in fact it will not improve traffic in West Salem. In fact, it'll make it worse. It will make it congestion along the Salem Parkway, and downtown will continue. It will remove the greenway along the Edgewater Partnership, which will destroy the character of this community. It will close the Rosemont exit without a decision at this point on how to solve that congestion problem. ODOT stated, and you can read my quotes, but the preferred alternative was designed to improve mobility and safety for people in West Salem. One of the design criteria for seeing if that was done to reduce congestion at the existing bridgehead. SCAT said in their letter to City Council that they support finding projects that also reduce congestion. So what does the preferred alternative do? 20 out of 33 intersections in the study area failed to meet mobility standards and criteria. 3 in West Salem, 7 in West Salem, 3 in Central District, and 10 in North Salem, 7 of which are new intersections that do not fail now. The preferred alternative does not meet SCAT's requirements or the Salem requirements. Why buy something that's broken, spending over $400 million for this project? Perspective has been lost. It doesn't address the city manager's issue of budget funds. It does not relieve congestion, and it makes things worse than better. I ask the City Council to be wise stewards and do not pass this ordinance. It will cause more harm to our community than good. It does not solve the congestion problems. It makes it worse. And I think that as you look at it, it was based on a compromise that made a decision to alter the design. You can choose to move forward with a different solution and find a solution that works. We will not lose the hours, time, money spent to date. We just decide we're not going to plow the field twice with a motion that Councilor Lewis says. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Doty. And then Brent, do you know who you are? Brent C. I just can't read the... Okay, I'll try it then. You're in for it. It's Kuban? Okay. There you are. Okay.
I'm just thankful that we have a city like this where we can get together and discuss these issues. Very grateful for that. I'd like to address Mr. Mayor and City Council right now on behalf of my wife Gail Calderazzo and me that we've really enjoyed our both now 50 years plus in the city of Salem, and it's a wonderful city. I think a lot of you know that we've invested a lot in the downtown in recent years and just love our city. But, you know, I do grieve a little at one issue, and I have a little bit of a bone to pick about Salem. You know, I was a physics major before I became an accounting major. There's a law called inertia. Anybody familiar with that? Is a body in motion tends to stay in motion, a body at rest tends to stay at rest. And I think Salem is really in the habit of resting. Something that comes up that could just be life-changing for us. That third bridge. I don't want 3 bridges. I want 4, 5, 6 bridges. What are we doing? Go to Boise, Idaho, and every time I go to Boise, they're building another bridge. I think there's 12 bridges across the Boise River because they're determined to do it. They're determined to be a great city. They have their own TV stations. They have commercial air service. They have bridges. They have infrastructure. Instead of, no, we can't do it, we're afraid. We want to be, we need to be determined to be a great city. And that's what I'm here to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Brent. Followed by Chris Wilhelm.
Mayor Bennett, Council, I'm Brent Culver, reside at 1674 Pelican Court Northwest. I've participated in a number of these surveys over the past couple of years. The last one being one that was for our Salem planning process, the city's website dated November 6, 2018. In which apparently 215 people answered multiple choice question, as Salem grows, what is most important to achieve? Nearly half of all those people responded safe, reliable, and efficient infrastructure, by far the most popular answer. The results of this survey were not a surprise, as they are consistent with the city December 2017 survey that showed 82% of Salem residents find driving across town at rush hour difficult, an increase of 7%. We've already heard about the 77%, so I won't go into that, but we all know that the bridge is not safe for a Cascadia event. We've already discussed the inefficiency of it. It's also not reliable, as we saw, a number of times when there's traffic mishaps. But I think we also forget about the flooding issue. If anybody remembers back to when it flooded a number of years ago, the water that came down was down below the impasse from Wallace Road onto the bridge. That was flooded for a period of time. You can't use that. Sometimes, I've been a resident, by the way, of West Salem for 54 years, of my 57 years as a Salem resident. Also, there's flooding also sometimes it occurs at the highway level too. If you have both of those situations, you have no way to get across either bridge. So on the alternatives, when I was here the other week to testify, alternative of Independence, well, in a flood situation, that's not an option. Also, neither is the ferry situation in a flood situation. So something to consider. I was also here at the time talking about my mother the day that the hay truck went over. Well, as it happened, this other week she broke her hip over in West Salem. They had to put in a pacemaker. Had it been that same situation, she would not survive today. So please think about it. It's a safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Chris Wilhelm, followed by Ian.
Mayor, members of the council, my name's Chris Wilhelm. I live in Ward 8 at 2487 Ian Avenue Northwest. I'm here to speak in support of Councilor Lewis's motion. I echo Mr. Arthur's comment about moving that process forward. That is what we're asking tonight, is to move the process forward. I echo the support and the continued work on the 15 recommendations from the Congestion Relief Task Force, and I was happy to hear that Salem 350 does as well, including Marine Drive as currently designed from Glen Creek to River Bend. I echo the Mayor and SCAT's Chair Clark's comments about supporting the motion. I support Mr. Erdsman's comments about the statistics, the support in the city, the 77% that we've heard about. I echo Mr. Allheiser's comments about the neighborhood association that supported this crossing at a ratio of at least 6-1 as voted in the July 2017 meeting of the WSNA. And so I just wanted to voice my appreciation for all the work that has been done by all of these council members, the ones before it, and that it's our responsibility to move the process forward and address the 3 items in the remand that need attention. It's worth our city staff's time to take care of those things and move the process forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions? Okay. Ian, followed by Tim Vandrick? Tim, okay.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Ian Levin. Mailing address is 695 Commercial Street Southeast, suite number 006. I'm a resident of Ward 7, recently moved from Ward 1, born and raised in Salem, and I'm also a member of the Salem Planning Commission. I'm speaking here tonight as an individual, a resident, and multiple business owner in the city of Salem. My profession is commercial real estate. And so I study and focus on not just buildings and land, but transportation and accessibility of property. Location, location, location is the classic cliche of real estate, and how you access that location is vital. Something that has stuck out to me about the city of Salem is our transportation plan and what we've done historically and some of the changes that we've started to move toward, but I feel that we're not recognizing maybe some of the needs that we have outside the city of Salem. This isn't just a Salem issue, and so that's why I wanted to come and speak in support of Councilor Lewis's motion this evening to move this process forward the next step so that the city can debate this to its full extent. But for those of us that are in support of the bridge, we all have something that we can point to, and a lot of folks here have spoken solely about the city of Salem. And my view is much larger. Looking at the area, the region, our commercial traffic going through our downtown makes that core less inviting to the citizens. Not even talking about the efficiency of transportation or any of those other factors. I think if you look at successfully designed communities, they've worked to separate local traffic from regional commercial traffic. And that's something that Salem hasn't done, and this is our bottleneck. So this will be a major point of contention going forward. But I think that the citizens of Salem deserve the opportunity to discuss it further, and I would ask you to move this motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ian? All righty, thank you. Tim, and then EM.
Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, thank you for all your hard work. I know it's a thankless job. So my name is Tim Fondrick. I own and operate a business at 1436 Commercial Street Northeast, and I've lived on Wallace Road in West Salem for over 40 years. I've seen Wallace Road go from a sleepy county highway when we first moved to West Salem to a very busy 4-lane plus highway today. I'm here to support Councilor Lewis's motion moving forward. During the early days of this Salem River Crossing project, which would have been over 10 years ago, I attended a meeting to look at some of the options that were being considered for the third bridge. At the meeting, a well-known local business owner and friend of mine leaned over to me and said something along the lines of, "Tim, we'll probably never see another bridge built in our lifetime." Being naive, I supposed, I brushed off his statement as unrealistic. The thought of this project not moving forward as it was being discussed was not on my radar. Well, here we are, at least 10 years later and millions of dollars later, and we are still without another bridge. I am shocked that we have not placed a higher priority on this as a community. We're growing, period. The lack of proper infrastructure is a major threat to that growth and livability. During the recent hay truck accident, we had a personal experience that was incredibly unfortunate. I was not home at the time, but a lady had to pull in and apparently use our bushes to relieve herself. That should not happen to anybody, and that's because of improper infrastructure. I'm personally affected on both sides of the bridge. In the mornings, midday, and any time after 3 p.m., traffic backs up in front of my house on Wallace Road. And in the afternoons, usually starting around 3:30, 4, depending on the day, backs up in front of my office on on Commercial Street Northeast. And I do have the flexibility personally to go into the office a little bit later and avoid the morning traffic, and I delay going home as late as I possibly can to avoid it going home. But I know many others are not so fortunate. They have jobs to get to, kids to pick up, life to live, all on a schedule. They are hardworking, productive neighbors who just want to be able to get where they need to be safely and on time. I've heard the arguments against the bridge. I know and respect many people that are on the opposite side of this argument, but I do believe that this is not an us versus them issue. This is a we issue. We owe it to our community to move forward, and I urge you to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions? Okay, EM.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett, members of the City Council. E.M. Easterly, 775 Fir Gardens Northwest. We've heard many comments this evening for and again the motion that Councilor Lewis has provided to this body. I'd like to raise a completely different issue. I would say that issue is very deep in that the rule of law is the foundation of our political system, and we, residents of Salem, are obliged to follow the law or change it. Our community must faithfully and accurately implement and comply with democratically adopted local, state, and federal laws. I'm asking you as a council, our elected members, to join me publicly in this view. I request that you demonstrate your commitment to budget the funds necessary to eliminate the legal contradictions stemming from conflicts between the wording of the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan and our Salem Revised Code. The LUBA decision that's being discussed tonight exemplifies my point. The 2016 Salem Council decision was inconsistent with the rule of law. You can act tonight by allocating monies to repair the flaws in that 2016 decision. You can budget tonight funds to reconcile past council decisions and the multiple legal contradictions that exist in the Salem Revised Code. By sidestepping the bedrock bridge issues, the council is avoiding an oversight responsibility. Addressing the remand will demonstrate this. Will demonstrate council's commitment to support and endorse the rule of law. Again, I ask you to fund the reconciliation of the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan and Salem Revised Code.
Thank you, E.M. Yes, Councilor.
Thanks, E.M. I, again, find your comments very interesting and intriguing. But let me make it real simple. Are you encouraging this council to pass this motion or not?
Purposely not. That decision is not mine. It is yours.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no. Oh, you got a question? I do.
Mr. Easterly, over here, Ward 6.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't understand the email that you sent to us, and I don't understand what you're saying to us this evening in terms of specifically, what are you asking us to reconcile?
A decision was made by a prior council. That decision was appealed, and I was one of the people that appealed it. I appealed it not because I was against a bridge, and if you look back through the record, you will find that I've been supportive of additional transportation in this community. What I'm saying is, as a council, I don't want to see conflict continued, and this side says that, and that side says that. We've heard that across the testimony we've heard this evening, or that I've heard. I'm looking for you to say, what is it that we as a city, as a citizen, must do to follow the law? That's what I'm asking you to do. I can give you a dozen examples, but I don't want to take your time or those issues tonight. The one I'm talking about is an improper legal decision was made by a prior council. It needs a fix. How you choose to fix it, I leave up to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Anderson.
It seems to me that what you want us to do is to fish or cut bait.
That would certainly follow under my personal rubric.
Councilor Hoyt, do you want to ask about that one?
No, I'm good. I come from a commercial fishing family. I know about fishing and cutting
I
bait.
know, you're the only one here that fishes or cuts bait. Let's see what's going on. Herb Shaw. Ron Lidke. Bob Courtright.
Mayor Bennett and council, thank you for letting us talk to you this evening. My name is Herb Shaw. I live in Ward 8. I own a business in Ward 1 on Edgewater. Nothing is more important to me than the need, and I think the city's needs, is to have more bridges. And I think if environmentalists were serious and actually got their numbers together properly, they'd understand that there's more pollution being created by cars parking on the bridge than what the increase in traffic will be, because that will be a movement. It won't be a stalled situation. Obviously, a car is more efficient when it's operating rather than when it's idling. It's no secret that I'm opposed to the alignment and the location of the proposed third bridge. That does not mean that I do not support more bridges. In fact, I support 3 to 4 more bridges, a minimum of 3. About 35 years ago, Senators Hatfield and Packwood proposed a belt line system and additional bridges in Salem. And now we can look and see what inaction really looks like after 35 years of dropping that concept. I propose that we do not kill the process and delay action on constructing new bridges. I propose that we have the opportunity to testify and come up with bridges that will actually solve the problems that we are concerned with, and most of that is congestion. Downtown, Wallace Road, 22. So don't stop the process. We need more bridges. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lewis?
Thanks, Herm. Good thing I'm sitting down. I got to ask the simple question, do you believe that the city should respond to the 3 issue remanded to us by LUBA?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Herb.
Thank you.
Ron, followed by Bob Courtwright, followed by Steve Evans.
Okay, thank you. I'm here tonight, 1236 Lottie Lane Northwest. I'm in Ward 8. I'm not going to add to many of the arguments that we've heard tonight. I'm just going to tell a little story about my family, if that's okay. I guess part one of this story is that decades ago, my wife and I, we rented this small house on Boone Road, and we were happy as can be to get into a house, get out of the apartment, start raising our family. It was ideal for us because we had this huge backyard. And at some point during our stay, though, we learned we'd be losing a portion of our backyard because a new road was going to be going in behind us. Our next door neighbor, incidentally, he didn't like the idea of selling part of his lot, so he kind of dug in his heels. He wasn't going to sell. The new road was a boondoggle. It was completely unnecessary. The east-west traffic in that part of town wasn't that bad. There were a lot of options. That would be much cheaper and made much more sense than putting in this expensive road back there. And that's when we learned about something called eminent domain. My neighbor was forced to sell, and not long after we moved, this road that was known as Kubler Boulevard was built. Years later, I think the construction of that road turned out to be a pretty good deal, and it contributes to the quality of life here in Salem, and especially for the people even who own homes along Boone Road that may have been opposed at the time. I want to speak out in support of my Councilor Lewis's, what he's putting forth tonight. Just as an echo to that, I just want to note that at that time, we added to our family after that, but at the time we had 3 small kids that were running around playing in that big backyard. One of them was a kid who's very goal-oriented. She went off, got married at a very young age as a teenager. Her and her husband took turns putting each other through school. She put him through OIT. He put her through Linfield College. He's an engineer now. She's a registered nurse. They both, fortunately, settled in the Salem area, and they found the home of their dreams in West Salem. I want to appeal to you tonight, not on my behalf. The fact is, I've already gone through that phase of my life where I was rushing home after work to see a kid hit a ball off a tee or get to a band concert. But I want to appeal to you on behalf of my kids. The fact is, they deserve a right to go ahead and coach a team if they want to coach it, to be able to be there for their kids and not sit there in a metal box, staring at the bumper of a metal box in front of them. Because
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Any questions? Bob Courtwright, followed by Steve Evans.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, my name is Bob Courtwright. I live in Ward 8. I want to recommend the cut bait option. The third bridge is deeply flawed, and we have better options for improving bridge operations. 4 quick points. First, your decision to respond to the LUBA remand isn't just moving the process along. It doesn't create more process. What it does is it puts in place an amendment to Salem's comprehensive plan that says we're going to build the third bridge as a solution. There wouldn't be any additional public hearings. There wouldn't be any additional debate. It would be a settled matter of city policy. Second, fundamental questions about how much the bridge would cost and how it would be paid for are unanswered. The detailed cost estimate for the bridge that I'm holding is 1 page long. There are no backup studies, no references. That's an estimate that's 5 years old. The cost estimate doesn't account for building an earthquake-resistant bridge. It doesn't account for building across a 40-foot deep gravel lake, and it doesn't account for replacing the Rosemont exit. But even if the bridge only cost $425 million, we couldn't afford it. Our metropolitan area, you heard from our officials earlier today, have an adopted regional budget of the amount of money we expect to have over the next 20 years to build major road projects. This bridge would use all of the money that we have available to do that. There's also no financial plan, no adopted financial plan for the third bridge. But the unadopted plan, the one developed as part of this process, would call for a combination of gas tax increases, vehicle registration increases for Marion and Polk County, a $1.50 toll on bridge travel each way, and a city property tax increase. Together, those would cost a typical West Salem family about $1,200 a year. My third point is that bridge studies show that the bridge wouldn't do the main thing that people have been talking about tonight, and that is reduce traffic congestion, or if you want to extend that to idling as well. What bridge studies say is whether we build the bridge or not, traffic congestion in Salem will triple over the next 20 years. So, building a bridge isn't going to reduce congestion, isn't going to reduce emissions. My fourth point to you is we have better and more cost-effective solutions, things that we can do immediately that can make the bridges work better. We should, as the Congestion Relief Task Force recommended, come up with an improved incident response plan so that we can provide better emergency response, not 20 years from now, but in the next few years. We can also reduce congestion by making strategic improvements to existing roads. And finally, we can best protect our community from the effects of a Cascadia subduction earthquake by starting with retrofitting our existing bridges so that they survive a quake. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lewis?
Thanks, Mr. Corey, for coming down. A couple of questions. As an employee of the Department of Land Conservation and Development, how important would you say it is for regional transportation planning?
Well, I'm currently retired. I was an employee of the Department of Land Conservation and Development. I think regional transportation planning is very important.
Okay. Okay. And second question, the cost estimates that you just ran through were very familiar to me. I believe you're quoting from a workshop that was done here a few years ago. And the scenario of that workshop was, and it was attended by many private citizens, the scenario of that workshop was the bridge is going to cost $450 million. There's going to be no money from the federal highway, no money from Oregon Department of Transportation. How would you pay for it? Is that correct?
I don't believe that is correct. I believe what I was referring to was the financial plan that was considered by the project oversight steering team for the project, and that assumed some money from the federal and state government, but what you heard, I believe as a member of that task force, was there would not be very much money, and it was a question of how we make up the difference between what state and federal governments say they might provide and what we would need.
Yeah, and I believe that in essence, the numbers, the certain amount for tolls did come from the workshop. And I do believe that the representative of ODOT, when challenged, we can't do this by ourselves, he did mention, the state will contribute, let's say, $10 million. And then you got to pay for it all by yourself. I'll go on record right now saying that if the local community has to pay the whole price of the bridge, no way. But I have been told by both both of our senators said that we are still in the federal government is in the bridge building business, and if you can get the city to move forward then we'll help you find funding. So I believe them. Most recently, Paul Evans, who ran for District 20, said, and I quote, "If the city of Salem will do their job, and I think they should, I'll help find money." So the idea that there won't be money is not correct. We don't know yet. That's what's correct.
Just to be clear, I wasn't saying you should expect no money from the state or federal governments, but you've got a regional budget that is already assuming money's going to come from the state and federal government. It's not nearly enough. It will be a very small portion. There's a huge amount to be made up locally.
Let's try confining all this to questions and answers rather than a debate at this point.
Okay, mine would be a comment, though.
Okay.
I'm done.
There's no bridge design, is there?
No. There's not a bridge design,
Okay,
but
I just wanted to check because those numbers come from something else. I'm just trying to understand what's...
the EIS calls for a 4-lane bridge with ramps that connect all the way to over Marion Street and Center Street bridges along Wallace Marine Park. So it's not designed...
Wait.
I'm sorry?
Does it call for it, or does it just say this is the footprint?
It said that's the footprint,
maximum.
and those are the improvements that are within the footprint.
Yeah, okay. Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Steve Evans.
My name is Steve Evans. I live at 1936 Orchard Heights Road, Northwest. I come here as a citizen. I am an elected official on the Transit Board. I would like to address our vote for the we voted against this, and we were the only member of that group that did, and we voted against it not because we didn't want a bridge. We voted against it because it would create more congestion problems that it would solve in West Salem, and it would eliminate our use of our current transit mall because of the congestion of traffic on Glen Creek before you get to Wallace from Marine Drive. So we were concerned about the design, and I'm speaking historically. I'm not advocating for that group right now, okay? I live in West Salem. I've lived there since 1981. I'm a retired elementary teacher, and in that capacity, I taught my children to cooperate. And unfortunately, I've seen both sides be very uncooperative. It does not do anyone any service to maliciously attack any member that volunteers their time to serve as you have. So I personally have been embarrassed as a resident of West Salem at some of the rhetoric that has been directed at some of our council members. I apologize for that for myself. I come here tonight in support of Jim Lewis's proposal. I do it because I want this to move forward. I would hope that in your great wisdom you would attack the problems that you've created by allowing the building that has gone on in West Salem and continues to go on. There were 916 permits, that's doors, because mostly apartments, issued this year or in the works this year in West Salem. You add 1.5 cars per door and dump most of those on Wallace Road, and you're only adding, by allowing that building, you're only adding to the problem. And that's going to continue whether we build a bridge or not. So it needs to be addressed. I support a bridge, but I support a bridge that makes sense and that solves the problem. So I can't say I support your current river crossing plan because that wouldn't be correct. So hopefully you'll move forward and solve the problems that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And Mike Jaffe. Okay. That's the last person signed up. Okay. Anyone moved? There he is.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Dan Dorns. I own and run a business at 2015 Commercial Street, Northeast, and I'm here, I want to be on record as a supporter of Councilor Lewis's motion. And I just want to say that I support all the testimony of the proponents of the motion tonight, and to give any further testimony would only be repeating what you've already heard and adding about 2 minutes to this public hearing, so I will spare you that. Thank you very much.
Ken?
My name is Ken Adams. I live at 1695 Chemeketa Street, Northeast, Ward 1. And I would like to point out that in 2014, there were no members of the City Council opposed to a third bridge. There are now 5, with the 6th coming in about a month or so. I think the public has voted on this issue time after time again. I would also like to point out that, you know, we talk about emissions and climate change, but one of the biggest contributors to carbon dioxide emissions is concrete. And that's what you're proposing to build over the Willamette River, concrete bridge. Also, when we talk, you know, it's interesting, I believe Mr. Craig Evans mentioned about single occupancy cars coming across the bridge. That's where your big problem is. How big is a car? How many people can walk in that space? We have a lot of problems getting cars through town. When I moved here about 12 years ago, I lived in Sacramento previously. About a mile from my house, there is the Watt Avenue Bridge. 250,000 vehicles a day cross that bridge. That's a lot more than what we're talking about here. There is another bridge about 2 miles away that had over 150,000 cars going through. And the big problem is that they decided that they needed to widen the bridge. Well, they were told that they were going to have 8 lanes in each direction. You run out of space. And that's what our real problem is. We're expanding and putting people further and further away from the central city, which then makes them have to commute to work. How many people who live in West Salem have to cross because there's no jobs there for them? We are expanding and making the problem worse. It also wrecks our infrastructure and causes problems for the city to balance their budget because they're constantly having to improve the infrastructure. My sidewalks aren't any good. The streets around here are sometimes terrible. So what are you going to do? This is a problem that's going to be with us for a long time if we don't change our attitude. And part of that is due to climate change, because that will impact us greatly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Bennett and councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll be really brief. My name is Laurie Doherty. I live in Ward 2. I emailed something this afternoon, and so I won't read the whole thing. I just want to say that I am opposed to Councilor Lewis's motion to keep going forward with the bridge design and proposal, because it won't solve the problem you're trying to solve. I put in my email links to several transportation policy studies that show if you build it, they will come. If you increase capacity, it simply increases traffic. Right now, we're talking about increasing greenhouse gas emissions, you know, from people idling or more traffic. And even if we're all in electric cars, you'll still be sitting in traffic. I hope you will take note of the resources that I've provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roth?
Thank you. I was on the list, and I was told that it was worthless for me to talk, but I have to say, just for my own good.
Never worthless for you.
Oh, well, thank you. We'll see here. Our corporate office is 4895 Indian School Road, and I want to talk about plastic bags. And I would have came last week. I didn't realize that you could amend what I thought was going to be the ordinance last week. Or like 2 weeks ago, I didn't come, but I'll just read this. As of your October meetings, Councilor Hoy asked me if Ross would eliminate plastic bags and charge the 5 cent at the Lancaster store, which is outside city limits. I said we would. We want to be 100% consistent with what Fred Meyer, Safeway, Winco, and Walmart on Lancaster Drive will change to on April 1st. Ordinances are best received when they are consistent to all residents. My testimony tonight is to ask you not to have exceptions that certain businesses do not have to charge 5 cents for a paper bag. This amendment will be very confusing to customers that shop multiple retailers. This amendment will make it appear that Fred Meyer's and Ross are arbitrarily charging the 5 cents. This amendment, with the carve-out for an unlimited free paper bags at, I believe, just one store, will be against what we're trying to do in Salem, which is to get everybody to use a recyclable bag someday and eliminate all single-use bags. I'm known as a calm and logical person, but it's unbelievable to me that an elected city council would vote yes to benefit a local business, one that competes with Ross, and hurt another local business, Ross. And I'm pretty proud of what Ross has done in this community, and it just seems like that's not America. Thank you for your time. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it. We'll move on then to the consent calendar. Councilor?
I move approval of the consent calendar with the following pulls: 3.2B and 3.3D by Councilor Anderson.
Second.
Consent calendar consists of the minutes from the November 13th City Council meeting. Under resolutions, we have a resolution that approves property tax exemptions for 7 nonprofit-owned low-income housing properties. This is like a renewal from what we approved last year, same 7 folks. 3.2C is a resolution that will declare a public need to acquire and the City of Salem's intent to negotiate for the acquisition of easements for construction of a 54-inch water transmission line repair project. 3.2D is a resolution that transfers $3.9 million of appropriation authority from the utility fund, non-divisional contingency, and materials and services to the utility fund, non-divisional interfund transfers for the purpose of initiating drinking water treatment and system capacity projects in the capital improvement funds. Under action items, 3.3A, will authorize the city manager to execute the attached local agency agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation to purchase and install travel time reader devices along city streets and major city streets. 3.3B will authorize a subordination of 2 community development block grant acquisition/rehabilitation deferred payment forgivable loans for the Center for Hope and Safety, owner of a property located at 605 Center Street Northeast. 3.3C authorizes the city manager to execute a lease with Rudy's Steakhouse for property located at 310 Commercial Street Northeast. That is it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, could we take a 5 or 10 minute break, please, before
Before we vote?
Yeah, well,
That's what's next.
I understand
Lewis's
that.
motion.
Actually, my motion is not directed on number 5. It's directed on another thing we'll be voting on later. I mean, my
Okay,
need for a break.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, we'll take 5 minutes. But the next action will be on Lewis's motion. On to special orders of business. Councilor Lewis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council direct staff to prepare an ordinance and all other necessary land use actions to respond to the issues raised in Luba's remand of the city's urban growth boundary expansion decision concerning the Salem River Crossing. The ordinance and other actions shall be presented to council for their consideration prior to June of 2019.
Second.
Second by McCoy.
If I
Go
could
ahead.
speak, I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time, mostly because I'm not a real good public speaker, but I'm going to tell you that I have been impressed with the civility of the comments that we've heard tonight. This is a very emotional issue. I've attended some of the West Salem neighborhood associations, and the temperature does go up. But this is an important issue, not just for West Salem, but it's an important issue for the city of Salem and the partners that are in the region that have been working on this project for, I mean, we hear 13 years. When I look back, it looks like it's been going on for about 20 years. Started with 16 possible crossings. whittled down to 8, whittled down to 4, always including the no build option. The preferred alternative that the City Council set on was approved by the Oversight Committee, and the necessary land use issues were done. There was a joint public meeting a couple of years ago, and I know Councilor Anderson was there, and 4 other councilors and the mayor were there. That joint regional meeting approved moving forward on the land use issues, and it was not unanimous. It has never been unanimous. It will never be unanimous. But it was predominant. My numbers may not be exactly right, but they're close enough. 27 people at that meeting voted to move forward. 3 voted to not. A couple of things that I have found that I think are noteworthy, and this is from the Salem River Crossing webpage. This is the purpose. This is the purpose of the additional bridge, the Salem River Crossing. The Salem River Crossing, and I quote, "Salem River Crossing project is working toward finding a solution that will reduce traffic congestion for all users, buses, cars, trikes, bikes, trucks, not bike, trikes. To remove the congestion on the 2 bridges that cross the Willamette and the connecting roads in downtown Salem." It is not to relieve congestion all through Wallace and all through downtown Salem. The purpose is to relieve the congestion on the 2 bridges, and I believe that it will do that. I'm hoping that Council has spent the time to read the 6-page letter from the Salem-Kaiser Area Transportation Study. 6 pages, that's about a half a page a year of what we've been working on. And it tells the story of where we've been and where we need to go. I hope that the council, my fellow councilors, have read that, as well as the letter from the Oregon Department of Transportation, which, in my opinion, basically says this: ODOT is not going to allow us to have to pay back money. They're just not going to do it. So they have 2 options, and they talk clearly about it in their letter. 1, have the city of Salem respond to LUBA and move forward, or 2, we'll simply finish the EIS and request a record of decision based on the no-build scenario. My hunch is, if we go that route and get a record of decision based on the no-build scenario, and then we go back to ODOT and the Federal Highway and say we're ready now, whether it be 2 or 20 years from now, we're ready now to work on the bridge. If I'm the Federal Highway Administration or ODOT, I'm going to tell this organization to get to the back of the line. As I mentioned, there has never been a unanimous aspect of this bridge. From the very beginning, there are people on the committees that met over 26 times over the years. They are the ones that have preferred the no bridge alternative, which tells me one thing in particular, and it was one of the challenges to LUBA, that the city had not done its job as far as goal 1. And that's absolutely not true, and LUBA said that it's not true. There's been a public process for a decade, over a decade, and it's not been unanimous, but it has continued to move forward. Now to the specifics of the motion. As I mentioned, there was a joint meeting in October of 2016 to move forward on the land use issues by our partners, by the region. In December of 2016, the City Council passed the ordinance, and it was appealed to LUBA. No surprise. There are folks that simply do not believe that a 3rd bridge is the best thing for our community. We've heard them. We've heard them. I don't agree, but I respect their openness, their continuation in working with this process, but I don't agree. The remand to LUBA, one of the things that I learned about LUBA, is that they have the power to reverse, and they also have the power to remand. There was nothing of the 16 issues that were brought in front of LUBA, not one of them was reversed. 13 of them were denied. One of those 13 was pulled at the last minute by the petitioner, but LUBA still chose to say that even that was denied. 13 of the 16 issues denied. 3 remanded, basically sending back to the city of Salem, we have questions, we'd like to have you fill in this blank. That was 15 months ago. 15 months ago. And this city still has not heard what's up. So, we went through the Congestion Relief Task Force, and I'll remember the consultant standing at that booth right over there and almost apologizing to this room that they could not find anything that would really help the situation. That yes, there are 16 things that are short-term and might help, but there was no solution. I submit that the solution is responding to LUBA. That's all I'm asking this council to agree to do tonight. In fact, if you look at the motion, it clearly says, the ordinance and other actions shall be presented for council consideration prior to June of 2019. So it's going to come back to this body. We're going to get to listen to what the city has to say as far as responses. I think that's a much better way to go than to simply sidestep the issue or just to tell LUBA, forget it, we're not going to respond. Something else, and the emergency to act is real. We have been given a time limit, September 30th, 2019. If we don't have it together by then the Federal Highway Administration is done. That's an extension that they've already given us. The issue, have the city bring back answers to LUBA for city council approval in June. I think it's a simple request. I think the citizens of this city deserve it. I'm going to mention one last thing because it is an issue, at least in my house. My wife's mother is dying of Alzheimer's. And she is at a care facility on Wallace Boulevard. And we drive by that facility every day. And I can't tell you how often we see an ambulance in there. An ambulance. It is seconds if somebody's having a heart attack. And we might have the old railroad bridge where we can pull out the spokes and get to the hospital that way. How many more seconds will that take? The issue of safety is real. My wife sits home every day afraid of what might happen to her mother in her last days. I don't think that's fair. I think we at least deserve the right to respond to see if, in fact, LUBA won't agree with us. Last thing, if I can, Mr. Mayor. Last Monday night, there was a comment I brought up that I thought the Salem River Crossing should be on the agenda for things to talk about at our work session in January. By no means did I think that that should be the start of the conversation. It's not a new issue. This has been going on for 13 years, almost 20 years. It should be on our minds, and it should have been on that list anyway. But the idea of postponing this, waiting a month or 2 or 3 or 4, is a disservice to the community that I just cannot accept. I encourage you to allow this city to bring forward to us, this city council, the responses to LUBA so we can move forward. And I encourage you to support the motion.
Thank you. Councilor?
Thank you. I'm going to offer a substitute motion. I move that the City Council hold a work session specifically to discuss all potential issues concerning the environmental impact statement for the third bridge, including but not limited to its effect on neighborhoods, Wallace Marine Park, Edgewater Drive, the Rosemont exit, projected congested areas and travel times under build and no build options, and financing options.
Second by Kaser. Go ahead.
2 years ago, we had the original vote on the land use issues to modify the transportation system plan and to expand the urban growth boundary. I voted against it then, and one of the things that I said then was in the 2 years that I had been on the council, we had not had a work session on this particular matter. It's now 2 years later. We still have had no work session. So to me, if we're talking about process, as many of the speakers were, part of the process means we need to get all these facts out in front of us as a council and us as a city. We heard a number of differing contentions tonight about it will do this, it will do that, no it won't, yes it will. It just seems to me that we ought to have a work session where we can actually get the answers to this from the staff. Now, I know the staff has been working on this at various times, and we've had open meetings and stuff, but we've never had a council work session where we can just ask questions about these areas and other areas I've raised. So I ask you would support my motion.
Counselor, I want to understand something, because I'm not sure your motion is different than Councilor Lewis's. It sounds like you'd like to incorporate a work session between now and June regarding this issue before we take a vote on sending some response to LUBA, allow the staff to, is that what you're saying?
That's basically it.
Why don't we just incorporate the two?
No, thank you. No, I understand and appreciate your position, but this is a substitute motion.
No, I just want to understand your thinking rather than, let me tell you why, and I'm not,
Sure.
I'll just be commenting on your motion. You see those two guys back there at the press table? I was a couple years younger than them, and my hair was about the same color when I first wrote about the third bridge on Mission Street back in the 70s. That's how long this issue's been in front of me in my life, whether as a reporter or as a councilor, now as mayor. And it sounds like what you're doing is just stalling. I'll just be honest with you that this motion's kind of a stall.
Well, I will certainly tell you, 2 years ago, it was the shoe was on the opposite foot there, because I believe that the motion then was brought forth quite quickly. We hadn't had any action at all at the council level, any discussion, and all of a sudden it's on our motion for the December meeting.
I understand what you're saying.
And so it works both ways, Mr. Mayor.
Participating in the process around the third bridge over that 10 years, but
I guess that my final point would be, if we have been working on this for 40 years, and even accepting, which I don't, that it's a stall, we're talking about 1 month, 2 months out of 40 years.
Councilor Lewis?
Yeah, I will not support the motion. As I mentioned, I believe this decision needs to be made tonight, one way or the other. This community deserves it. We didn't seem to have any hesitation at all, and still don't, from Kaiser, Marion County, Polk County. You've seen the letter from SCATS. It is just this body that seems to have changed their mind. Over the process of this evaluation, there have been 14 work sessions with city council members. There hasn't been any in the last 2 years because all the work that needed to be done was done. The appeal went to LUBA. We waited for LUBA's remand. We got it, and we're stalled. I don't think we need a work session. I think we need a commitment. I think we need to show courage that we either respond to LUBA, send the direction to staff, or quite frankly, if you don't want it, then end it. Just one more thing, if I could. It's been 15 months since LUBA remanded the issues to the city of Salem. Where has been your desire to stop the action? There hasn't been. It's just been sitting there. And I, for one, am not going to let it die a dusty death.
Councilor Hoy.
Mr. Mayor, this is the second time I have heard our motives impugned by the councilor from Ward 8, and I would like to remind the councilor of our rules, and I would like to ask you to enforce our rules about impugning our motives. To suggest that we don't have courage impugns our motives, and I don't appreciate it.
Is this your motion?
Not at all.
Okay. I didn't hear anyone impugn anyone's, probably me saying looks like a stall to me.
Well, I think I got close. But this is
don't-
the second time I've heard it from this counselor.
I
I
didn't
read it in
hear
the
it.
newspaper, and then I heard it tonight.
Yeah, I
I
didn't
thought
hear
about reminding us earlier. I chose not to. Now it's again, and
You
I
have
just
to be really specific for me to understand what you're talking about.
if we don't act the way he believes we should, we are not acting with courage. That's impugning our motives.
Okay. Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this substitute motion, and one of the reasons why is I've been on the council for 2 years, and we've never been able to discuss it as a council. I understand all this work has been done. I've actually been involved in it for some time at a neighborhood level before I was on council, but as this body, and we did have a turnover in council 2 years ago, and partly I think because of the response about this issue, but I don't think there's anything, I don't think it's a big ask to hold a work session in January to really lay out the EIS, the work that's been done and what exactly we're talking about. I think so many people have kind of come and gone off the council and these committees and the oversight teams and kind of all the layers over the course of the 10 or 12 years it's been in play that this body, at the very least, has never really heard those things in kind of one place. That's all that I'm looking for. I want to know what's possible with this EIS. I've already been on the record many, many times here and at West Salem and other neighborhood associations as not being opposed to a bridge, but being opposed to this EIS because of what it does. So I would like to know, does EIS have flexibility? Are we committed to what it does? Can we build less than what it is? I mean, all of those questions have not been answered. We've never had an opportunity to even ask those questions as a body. And that's why I really support a work session. And we can hold it in January. I think our calendar is already booked for December, but let's hold it in January.
I hear you. I heard kind of the same, and I'll just be honest with you, I heard kind of the same argument and agreed when we took on the congestion task force. Well, gosh, if we can solve it with these really simple, we'll take another look at the bridge. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking
Well,
about.
and if I could,
Yeah,
I think, the
yeah.
Congestion Relief Task Force was really looking at what are the things that we can do within the next 5 years. It really was not designed to look at long-term solutions. That was never its purpose. I think as far as finding that there's no good long-term solution without building something else, I think was kind of maybe, I think we maybe knew that in the long run.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is the Congestion Relief Task Force is going to do separate things than possibly another river crossing. And what I'm saying is, let's have river crossings. I support several of them, really, but let's do them the right way. And the one that has been on the books or kind of being pushed by people either at a regional level or the city of Kaiser or Marion County has really been focused on this regional solution that really impacts Salem. It really impacts Salem taxpayers and residents. And I would like to find something that's going to work for kind of everybody. So I think our short-term solutions are really meant to be short-term. We should start doing things now that we've identified through those recommendations. But I would also like to know, what is possible with what's on the table. And like I said, as a body, we've never been provided the opportunity to do that yet.
I'm still trying to figure out where I've been all this time. I've just heard about this for years. I don't know. Go ahead.
I guess I'm a little puzzled why we need a substitute motion to have a work session.
Yeah.
You can have a work session, let's call for one and have the work session, and continue to deal with this motion. This motion is long overdue. We should have done it months ago. And that the fact is, this was remanded. We've got business to do. We need to follow through, I think, with this and get it done in any way, shape, or form. And real frankly, the EIS to me is, it's paperwork. It's paperwork is what it is. It's going through the motions to get the paperwork at this specific site so a bridge can be built. Now, the footprint could be as big as what has been discussed, or it could be smaller. It doesn't have to be that size. Passing this EIS does not say we're going to build that size of a bridge. It just says up to that amount. So if you've got the footprint where you can build a bridge. It could be a smaller bridge going through there, and it could be built too. But if you let this go, and we've got a deadline coming up here, and I think Councilor Lewis is right in bringing it at this point, we still have to get to the point where we do the response, develop it, and send it in to be handled. And if you want to wait a couple, 3 months, it's just going to shorten the timeline and the time the staff has to work it. So for me, these things can go hand in hand. Pass this, get the work going, and call for your work session in early January and deal with the work session. I don't disagree with you folks that, a lot of this stuff was 4, 6, 8 years ago. So getting the groundwork and answering questions, I think that's completely appropriate. But to replace this mission with that, it makes no sense to me. You can do that without this motion, and you can move forward with this mission. So I won't support that, the substitute motion for that reason, but I would encourage you to call and ask for one, and we'll get it anyway. After this, if you pass this motion, we'll say, okay, let's have a thumbs up. Okay, we're going to have one, and the city manager will schedule it.
Do you want to, I hear you, Councilor McCoy, really describing a substitute motion, which incorporates both of these issues in one motion. Is that your motion?
I can do that. I'm not sure we'll get anywhere, but
go ahead.
I'll do that. A substitute motion to the substitute motion? Can we do that?
Yeah, you got one. Go for it.
If there was an amendment somewhere in there, you would have been able to.
Okay, I move that we combine the two motions and continue with Councilor Lewis's motion and include Councilor Anderson's motion calling for a work session to update the council moving forward on what's gone on for the last 15 years with this whole issue.
And I seconded that.
Second by Nanki. You want to say anything more? No. Okay, Councilor Lewis?
Yeah, a question for the maker of the second substitute motion. I just want to make sure that your motion entails two things. One, that we require staff to bring back the 3 responses to LUBA before June of 2019, and that in the meantime, we have a series of work sessions. So every counselor feels as though they have the knowledge to make a decision when those issues come back to us sometime next spring.
It sounds like you.
Fine, if you need more than one, schedule another one later, but...
Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you. I'd just like to respond to the motion. So I won't be supporting it, and I'll explain why, is I don't feel that we have the information tonight to make the decision that you're wanting, Councilor Lewis. And that's the purpose of the work session, is this has been a scattering of information over the last 2 years, at least for me, on the council, and also for other councilors that are recent. And that's what I feel that we need the information to pull together so we can make a decision about your motion. So that's why I think we need the information before we can make the decision about whether or not we're going to respond to the remand. So hopefully that makes sense, but that's why we need a work session prior to making a decision. Otherwise, you're already making a decision, and the work session is not. There's no point in having it because you've already made the decision.
The decision point continues to be after the work session. This does not put a decision ahead of the work session. This just says, staff, get ready. We will have a work session, then we will vote on whether to remand or respond to the remand.
Well, I don't know if that's entirely, that is not very clear to me as far as how the motion is laid out. And what I guess I would rather have is the work session within, 5 weeks or 6 weeks. Well, second week, whenever we want to have it, but let's have it the first half of January. I'd rather the staff work right now, go into preparing for that, than working on a remand that might not happen.
Okay.
Especially when we're talking about city resources.
Councilor Nanki.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff's not going to have to work on much because they've done numerous work sessions over the years, and I know several of my fellow councilors actually ran on the proposition that they were running against a third bridge, but if you don't know what's entailed in all the reports that have been out there, how can you make that statement? versus, you know,
Yeah.
we need a work session before so we know what it's all about. Luba remanded something to us. If it was any other land use issue, it would have come to us and we would have said, what do you want to do about it? And it would have been on the floor with us. Typically, you don't just not respond to a remand. So I'll support the end point to say, yeah, we need to give a response to Luba. And I don't have any problem with having some work sessions in the upfront. Maybe it'll actually educate some of the folks in the community a little more. But I'm sensitive that current counselors weren't here for a majority of all of those decisions. It's going to be similar to other decisions that are coming down the pipe we'll have a new counselor in again, and that's just kind of how this always works. But all that material is out there on the record as well. So any of the councils could have asked staff at any time or watched every single one of the previous work sessions as well. But the information is pretty cut, dry, and clear. So.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'll fish.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
Ayes, raise your hand. Okay. Motion fails. All righty. Okay, we'll go to the substitute motion. This is the one where we'll have a work session sometime. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
You know, I understand the desire to have as much information to make a good decision. And that's actually what my motion was all about, getting information so we can make best decisions. I believe this motion just keeps us away from addressing the issue. And I have to say, I'm ashamed. We are not doing a service, me included, not doing a service for the city by putting this off. It's been put off for 15 months. We have a looming deadline that Federal Highway has already extended. They're not going to extend it again. I just don't understand why we can't address the issue right out here, right in front.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to respond, Councilor Lewis. I think the work session is going to be beneficial to both sides, and I don't want to say there's sides, but there are.
Well, go ahead.
All
Go
of the
ahead.
sides.
I don't view you as impugning us by saying we're going sides.
But one of the things that I know has happened over the years is there's a lot of confusion about the process and what it is, what does a third bridge really mean? And I've seen that at my neighborhood associations and my neighbors and people who are both for and against something. And I think having a work session where everything is laid out, where we have all the documents, the studies, all of that stuff, it's just they have never been presented in a cohesive way before. Like I think Councilor Nanke was saying, and Mayor Bennett was saying, it's been piecemeal. We've had however many workshops you said over the years, but it's all been done piecemeal with different people and everything. If we can have everything though happen over the course of an evening and really lay out, this is what we're talking about, this is what the EIS is, this is what the process is, I think some of the kind of the misinformation on both sides will be clarified to people. So, and I'm always in favor of people knowing more than not, because I know I've talked with people, and once I kind of explain my understanding of it, they go, oh, I didn't realize that's what it was. And it could be people who support it and don't support it, but just, I think it's important that people know what that process is. So I don't think it's doing a disservice to the motion that you're trying to provide. I think I would like for there to be one more step before we take the next step, I guess.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. With respect to people who ran against the bridge or didn't run against the bridge, I would offer the opposite, that at least in my case, I did run against the bridge, but I did after I read all the material and knew what was going on. I mean, I formed an educated opinion. It may not be the opinion that somebody else might have formed, but I had all the facts. So I think the benefit of a work session, in addition to the other counselors who may or may not have done that, it's for the public. We can get all that stuff in one area.
Councilor Lewis?
Again, I agree with both Councilor Kaiser and Anderson. The more information we can bring forward, the better. But my request is simply to have that information brought forward, and in conjunction with the remand from LUBA. So I see us theoretically looking for the same thing. My course seems to be simpler. And because of the time restraints, because of we've let this sit for 15 months, the idea of letting it sit more while we talk more, as if we are going to change any minds, I object to.
Let me try something out on you, Councilor Lewis, just to see if this makes any difference. Listening to Councilor Kaiser, I hear the rationale, and I think it'll be revelatory for people opposed to the bridge when they discover what this really is, and the embarrassment will be astounding. But that's because I think the bridge is a brilliant idea and have for a number of years. Much like Councilor Anderson, I read the material. I followed it closely. But here's what I'm thinking. Your motion can be made right after the work session, and I think that would be the question. Is there anybody going to try, let's just all raise our hands and kind of pinky swear we're not going to frustrate the opportunity to vote on this, so we do have a chance to kind of make a decision on this issue and not leave it floating. I worry that there we go. There's my man. That we will get back to this in February.
Steve said.
This is I think, a major issue, and we can put together a work session that really, I think, answers the kinds of issues Councilor Kaiser is describing, and we can revisit your motion specifically. I don't like this, Councilor Lewis, but I'm trying to kind of make sure we're all kind of on the same page, and that I think everybody's acting with goodwill. I really do. I'm going to believe that until I see that they aren't.
Yeah, and my only concern is that if this body waits till February to instruct staff to come back with the response to LUBA, and you add the 6 to 9 months that staff has said they need to do that response, we're out of time.
They'll do better than that. They're better than that. They can do it faster.
I take them at their word.
I tell you, the other reality, Counselor, that we should probably pay close attention to is we'll have another member coming onto the council in January. It will give her an opportunity to get up to speed on this before this issue comes in front of the council, which it would do under your motion. Do you see kind of the, I mean, I'm just trying to, it's kind of a pink cloud here. I don't mean to, I just want to see if that makes any difference. If you kind of think about it that way, you get a shot at it in February. I'm just working with you.
You know, I've waited for.
I know you did.
To bring this forward.
I know you did.
Our backs are against the wall, and here we are, sidestepping the request, and I'm not. No.
Well, I tell you what's about to happen is it's going to be sidestepped, and what I think we might be able to extract from this discussion, I mean, we've taken quite a bit of our time and the public's time on this, is a real commitment that we get one straight vote on this thing in February in terms of the remand and responding to it. Because we'll have gone through our work sessions. I think folks are saying they're just not ready yet. And I mean, I'm surprised, you're surprised, but I think it's fair to say we ought to accede to the request, but with a guarantee we'll be back in February at some point for a vote on this thing. And there will be no more substitute. Does that sound fair? We'll just agree, we'll vote on this? A lot of people watching, you're saying yes. Okay. Me too. You will.
Well,
You'll
I was
make the
gonna say,
motion, won't you?
What I would hope is that we can have a work session in January.
Yeah.
And then we can vote on that issue the next meeting, perhaps. I don't know.
Okay.
I think it would be important, though, to have an actually separate work session.
Right.
So we can have the evening, because I think it's going to take the evening.
Yeah, yeah.
The questions that we have.
And the next morning.
And is that?
Saturday.
Or a Saturday or something like that. But we needed to vote the time, not have it like before a council meeting or something like that. It needs to be a separate thing.
What do you think, a.Second? You in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Better not be cute with everyone.
Okay. Okay, we have a substitute motion on the floor for a work session in January on this issue. And then I think as a separate understanding, we will then in February take up Councilor Lewis's motion again. Ask him to bring it back to us, okay? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nays, raise your hand. Okay. Motion passes. All righty. Thank you.
If we can lock that date down.
We will lock that date down.
Make sure all of us are actually here. Third, first, and fifth Mondays. Saturday.
Still voting. Yes. Another amendment to the bank.
Yes, someone's going to make a motion. I can't. I voted against it. So make a motion to reconsider at the next meeting. Okay.
Okay, let's continue on with
Awesome.
item 3.2B. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll take 2 seconds, I know. Me, Chuck, maybe 4.
Okay, let's get back to finishing this up tonight. 3.2B, pulled by Anderson.
Okay, thank you. I move that I move the proposed amendments to the Riverfront-Downtown Urban Renewal Plan.
Second.
Just a brief comment. I'm all in favor of this. My concern talked about the future expansion of the Salem Convention Center, and I understand how, as a process matter, if we're ever going to expand, our plan has to say expand. We're amending the plan now. We might as well amend it to say expansion. I had some concerns about whether or not the convention center, as situated right now, is making a profit or not making a profit, because my concern is what happens if we're not making a profit and we further expand. Are we going to be subsidizing it to some respect? And Director Rutherford assuaged my concerns, and I would ask her to just speak a minute or two to that issue.
Absolutely. Since the convention center opened for operations, it has not needed to dip into its gain loss reserve to fund operations. So the gain loss reserve was established with this $4 million threshold to fund operations if needed, or to fund capital projects. While it has been used to fund capital projects, it has not been used to subsidize operations. They have been in the black since they have opened.
Thank you, that's all I need to
Okay.
know.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. 3.3D, Councilor.
Yes, I move that we support the Small Community Air Service Development Grant application for commercial air service development.
Second.
Second by Lewis.
Same little question I had here, and two things. I mean, one, I saw, and I'm sorry I wasn't at the last meeting for this, but I did see the comments, and there were a lot of comments to me that talked about, ironically, the same issue we've been talking about on the third bridge. Carbon emissions into the air, and what would happen, and think of all the carbon that is being wasted into the air if we drive to Salem, or drive from Salem to Portland, or drive from Salem to Eugene, as opposed to flying. I don't think that's a compelling argument to me, because studies show that one airplane would use a whole lot more gas and also emit more carbon dioxide into the air. So I don't buy that as an argument, but if in fact the studies show that it is commercially feasible, then I think we should consider and discuss it, and I'll await the studies, agreeing with Mr. David Turner, who said it's happened 2 times before and it hasn't worked out, but maybe it will this time.
Councilor Nanki.
Yeah, and I heard that, and I was going to actually comment on it previously, and I should have. Our service did not fail. We were the highest occupancy rated flights in their entire system, and the fuel prices went up, and they made some tough business decisions and took us out because we were this small entity down there. But our utilization of the system has always been spectacular. And so it's not been that we've ever failed them. It's that they've made business decisions that pulled us out of their fold, so to speak. We're great flyers.
All right. Anything else? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes.
Fishers and flyers.
Information reports. Anyone have any questions, comments, thoughts? Yes.
This is for Director Fernandez, who's been here all evening and hasn't said anything. So now's your chance, Peter. It's on the utility rate hearing, and I'm looking at page 2, the last paragraph where you're talking about some alternatives that the staff is considering to increase assistance to customers in need that can be implemented without requiring a corresponding increase in rates. Because your earlier discussion was, we're doing what we can now, and if we do more, we would have to charge everybody else more.
Thank you, Councilor. Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director. We took to heart our promise to the council to report back after the approval of the rate proposal, and I appreciate that council did that. As you can see, the other issues are resolved. The issue related to this is to assistance is not. As we have looked at our programs, we think there is an opportunity to perhaps help more people. Our biggest concern, my biggest concern, is that it not cause a rate increase. We think there is a way to do that by raising the bar, lowering the bar, so that more people can qualify, but perhaps set a cap, but a much more substantial amount than what we're spending today, so that, and we can experiment with that, so that by the time the next rate proposal comes back, we can see where we're at, and then we can have the discussion with the task force and then with the council. So what I would hope would happen this evening is that a councilor would make a motion to direct us to come back with a program proposal that does that, and we have some ideas, but we want to put them together. If council is moved to do that, we'd be delighted to bring back information.
Well, thank you for that information, and I'm looking at Councilor Hoy, who I think was the main proponent of this, so maybe he wants to make a motion.
Well, wait.
Move the directors. Yeah. Move the
Just wait to see
director's
if you're
request.
interested. You interested?
I am definitely
Okay,
interested.
I'll call on you then.
But before I do so, I would like to just comment that I met with Mr. Fernandez and his staff on this topic, and we had an excellent meeting. I'm really encouraged by the work that they've done and the direction they're headed. So I'm happy to make the motion I'm sorry, I got distracted by Mr. Atchison. But to further explore the I move that we direct staff to return to council with an enhanced program to assist low-income individuals.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Okay? Nothing else? We'll move on then to second readings.
Yeah?
Oh, Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council reconsider ordinance bill 20-18, having voted in the majority at the last meeting.
Second by Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is one of those ordinances that's kind of gone around the bend a couple of times, and I think it's important that we get it right. I'm not sure that we got it right after the last meeting.
Okay.
I think we have an opportunity tonight to get it right.
Okay. This will bring it back to the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
Now I'm going to make another motion.
Councilor?
Sorry, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Well, that'll be coming back at the next council
No,
meeting.
I'm going to
we're
make a
gonna
motion
keep
right now.
going here for a minute. Councilor Hoy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we remove the language that we added at the last meeting and revert back to the engrossed ordinance that we originally passed. And
And if I could clarify.
Thank you.
If I could
Please.
clarify that before you get a second, that just removes the second engrossments, the removal of the 5-cent fee if the retailers are in compliance.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Who's seconding this? I'll say. Okay. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Well, I think you wanted to say something.
Oh, did you want to say something?
I'll defer to Councilor Cook.
So I have concerns about this, which is why I asked for that engrossment before. There are more than one. There are several businesses that already do not charge and have already eliminated plastics from their business model. My concern is, I know equity's been brought up a lot. If that business is already in compliance, why are we mandating a 5-cent charge? Especially when there's issues resolving self-checkout, when there's issues involving self-bagging. I think it's going to be a little more complicated, and I do want to get this right. I mean, the goal isn't to, the goal is to invite people into this process, to make it so that compliance is easy and that it gets us where we want to go. I'd love to hear from other counselors on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Councilor Mankey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I agree. And the reason that this is difficult is because we're trying to get inside of people's businesses and tell them how to actually run their businesses. And if we just say, ban all plastic bags, leave it at that, as soon as you start throwing the nickel in there, you're starting to mess with them. Not letting them use the plastic bag at the front end is messing with them, but it's not messing with them as bad as having them be able to say, oh, why are you charging a nickel? Well, because Salem City Council said we have to.
But for the bit, sorry.
Yeah, it makes no sense. We do not belong inside of their businesses. Let them figure out how to deal with it if we're going to ban a plastic bag. I mean, their business models, many of them are already moving that way. A lot of them never have, and now they're going to start charging a nickel to people if they want a pack of smokes in a paper bag. Because the smoke shop around the corner where I buy my cigars has never used a plastic bag. It's always been paper, and they're going to have to charge people a nickel.
I forgot about the smoke shop.
It's like, yeah, it's a mess. And I won't be supporting. any proposal in regards to it?
Well, yeah, we could make any motion on this, Brad, and we understand that, yeah.
Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, it does become a mess, and I understand and appreciate Councilor Nanke's position. At the risk of making it even messier, why the language about charging for bags is mandatory? Why could it not be permissive? Why could it says now will charge or shall charge? What if it said may charge? Then that leaves it up to each individual business as to how they want to do that.
It was your motion.
Yeah.
Are you amending your motion, Councilor?
I didn't make that motion. I'm just throwing that out there for discussion, which is why, I was thinking we would do this next week, but I can see.
Would you like to hold off on this and kind of take a moment?
Well, because I see the points raised by Councilor Cook. I see the points raised by Mr. Roth, who was here, and I'm wondering if just making it permissive rather than mandatory, then it's up to each business how they run their business. Do they want to charge? Do they not want to charge?
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a fundamental disagreement with what you just said, Councilor Anderson. But I listened to what Mr. Roth had to say, and he wants a level playing field, and he feels strongly, I had an offline chat with him, he feels strongly that unless we mandate it, then there won't be a level playing field, and that's the whole point of that.
Councilor Kaiser.
To follow up on that, when we were having the public hearings a couple of months ago, that was the same sentiment that was conveyed by other businesses is, right now business can charge whatever they want for any of their bags, but it was really creating that level playing field for everybody. So things should be easy. It needs to be easy for people to do the right thing. So if the right thing is we're making this code, we need to make it easy. And I think if everybody's under the same kind of rules, so to speak, then it's very clear, who can charge and, who doesn't. So I think I'm going to be supporting the motion.
Which motion?
Councilor Rossi.
To add to that, from the public hearing, one of the reasons for the 5 cent was that it actually drives behavior as well. So if you're trying to reduce pollution, then you need to have that to drive behavior. So.
Councilor Cook.
Sorry, again, not to add to the chaos, and I know we've had testimony on this issue before, but Portland and Eugene and McMinnville, who have passed these particular bans, they don't have the 5 cent charge. And I know Mr. Roth represents a local business, and we support, does McMinnville? McMinnville does, sorry. McMinnville does. Eugene does as well, but Portland does not. So again, if we're talking about consistency, there's still inconsistency across the Willamette Valley. And as far as driving behavior change, the concern was, well, you're going to see an increase in paper bag use. But again, what are people supposed to use? So when we're talking about reusable bags, we're talking about cardboard boxes, about options. People have choices. And I think it's important to remember that. Also, it can just get really tricky. And I understand this is, on the face of it, not a complicated issue, but I also urge caution.
I'm going to quote myself from 3 meetings ago, the perfect is the enemy of the good, and that's our problem. But I'm persuaded by the comments of Councilor Osick that one of the real issues of the nickel, it's yes the level playing field, but it's also as a prod, shall we say, to interfere with people's freedom by making them bring their own bags. So I can see that I think that's a reasonable element of the statute.
Are you ready to vote, or would you like to just take a week? Ready to vote? All ready to vote?
Wait.
Councilor Lewis.
Just if I could have a restatement of the motion that we're talking about.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. So the motion would remove the second engrossments, which was 040040 and 48040 and 48050, changes to those sections, which would, if we remove those amendments, then would require retail establishments to charge a 5-cent pass-through fee for supplying a paper bag.
So we're going back to,
Wait a second. So can you repeat that one more time?
If the motion is successful, the ordinance would require retail establishments to charge the 5-cent fee if they provide a paper bag.
We go back one motion set.
Right. And no fee if people bring their own bag.
And no plastic available.
Right.
No plastic available.
Plastic is.
okay. Call for the question.
Let's just hold off for a second, just for a second. I'll let Councilor think. Okay.
Moment of silence. There's plastic bags back.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. We have one more second reading.
Ordinance Bill Number 2218, an ordinance declaring certain territory located at 5826 Battle Creek Road Southeast, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District. Councilor McCoyd.
Aye.
Councilor Ossick.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Cook.
Aye.
Councilor Lewis.
Aye.
Councilor Kaiser.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Nanki.
Aye.
And Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay. There's no further public comment. The meeting is adjourned.